Hi there. Thank you for joining me. I'm Don from Night Owl Movie Talk. I know you probably know who I am, but it's been so long since I've done one of these commentaries. I felt like introductions were in order. Um, Tonight, I'm going to be watching The Watchmen by Zack Snyder. I was going to originally watch a double feature of both Rebel Moon movies. They're new on Netflix right now. I watched Rebel Moon 1 back around Christmas time, and then Rebel Moon 2. At the end of Rebel Moon 1, they tell you the weekend of 4/19, they will have Rebel Moon 2. So interesting timing on that choice of release. But I watched the first one a couple times because it was Christmas time and I was doing stuff, wrapping presents and whatnot. So uh, in that endeavor, I would often just like at first I put on Rebel Moon one night when I was going to sleep, and then with various things going on, it just was always on the little button for Netflix. So I watched that thing like 3 times over 4 days because it was very Star Warsy, and it was kind of interesting. And after you've seen it once, you didn't really have to pay attention to it because it was just big, loud, and dumb. But the second one is extremely boring. And I kept thinking while watching the second one, I can't subject you guys to 4 hours of this boring, like, ripoff of Star Wars, mild Lord of the Rings, and I don't know, a bunch of other crap is in there, but a lot of Star Wars ripoff. The whole commentary would just be me going, "There's another Star Wars ripoff. Somebody needs to sue." So I thought if I'm going to make you guys sit through a long, winded, boring, rambling commentary where we could discuss the films of Zack Snyder, I'd much rather do it with The Watchmen. So that is tonight's choice instead of Rebel Moon 1 and 2. If at any point you had those on your calendar, set them away. However, this damn movie is 2 hours and 43 minutes long. So I'm going to get started like here and within seconds. I'm going to watch it on Max. It's currently streaming there. Most people have some form of physical media of it. There's, all sorts of DVDs and Blu-rays, different versions, director's cuts, the one with the, what's it called? The Tale of the Black, whatever. There's a whole pirate story that they removed from this where they cut away to a pirate comic book, and they make that version, but it's like, I don't know, 3-4 hours. Hey, Mayan is here. Hey. Hello, Mayan. Thank you for popping in. As with these late starts that are going to run late, I expect folks will pop their heads in and then have to bow out occasionally because it's going to be late. Tonight we'll wrap up at roughly 3:43. Well, God, it's 1:05, 1:03 now. So yeah, probably 3:45 in the morning, a little before 4 in the morning. Brutal. But, for those of you who needed something up in the middle of the night, this is a tremendous comeback, so buckle up. I am going to get started on this, and every now and then I will announce the timestamp. Jesus, my brain already forgot. Look how long it's been since I've done this. I already forgot the word timestamp. So let me move this microphone here where I can watch, and I'm going to go ahead and press play on this bad boy. A little circle spinning. And there it is. Good. Let me make sure the volume is off. Though it starts with a Time Warner, Paramount joint logos and Legendary Pictures, and DC. Sheesh, everybody's getting their hands in on this one. The Watchmen is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. I read it, probably when I was in college, so the early thousands, but it was, let me try to find a happy medium there. How's that? In the early thousands, I read it because it was like I was in college age and it was subversive, and it was like one of those things that you're supposed to read at that age kind of deal. But it came out when I was a kid. It was a multiple issue release through, week to week. And I ended up with a handful of them here and there. I still have the originals in my comic collection. But they later went in and made a graphic novel out of it, put them all together. And that graphic novel was deemed one of the best novels of the last 100 years. I think Time Magazine put that list out, or somebody did. And because of that notoriety and the fame that it got from being recognized by Time Magazine, people, important folks tried to read it, and libraries started carrying it and stuff. So I always dug the movie, or I always dug the graphic novel, but they never made it into a movie because it was deemed unfilmable. Like it was just so long and you couldn't take things out, and it's got a real involved plot, and it's a lot of it's a period piece, which always costs more money. So it was just deemed that you couldn't make this, for a bajillion, it would have cost $1 billion and take 4 hours. So a couple of different people tried to adapt it. They wanted to do it in 2 or 3 parts. And then finally, Zack Snyder agreed to do it after his success with the original Dawn of the Dead remake. When he was assigned this job, I thought he was doomed to fail. But I thought he was doomed to fail when he redid Dawn of the Dead. So Zack Snyder originally was a music video director. And Mayan says, it's nice to see you back. Well, thank you. It's nice to be back, Mayan. I promise. I've had a lot of stuff going on over the last few weeks where I'm busy during the day, and that messes up the Night Owl schedule, and it makes me just grumpy when I am awake because I'm not keeping my usual Night Owl hours. So I've had to take a few weeks off in between, but luckily Into House comes out every Friday, so that keeps me honest with not totally disappearing from you guys. You can at least track my flight pattern. But yeah, I apologize for a few weeks of absence. I was cranking out some Tarantino films there, and I ran into streaming issues, and I eventually just got annoyed with it. And then I got on my day schedule, and unfortunately, I wasn't available to talk to you guys this late at night. But through a few things that have changed and a few adjustments that have been made, I should be wide awake in the middle of the night from now on. So hopefully, we'll crank out a bunch of these, and we can figure it out from there. Anyways, as I was saying, Zack Snyder. Oh, hey, all sorts of folks popping in here. Oh, Kal-El Daly, welcome, Superman. Ali Oxenfree, I am free. That spelling is crazy. Let's see here. Hey, Cal. Hey, Erica's here. Swamp Kitty. Swamp Kitty. It's not as good as when I do it, but still, welcome, Erica. You're awesome. Echo Zero coming soon. Rebel Sailor Moon to a theater near you. Yeah, we'll talk about Rebel Moon too at some point. We got 2 hours and 43 minutes of this one to discuss pretty much everything under the sun involving Zack Snyder and everything. But hey, so Superman Kal-El says that he sympathizes with it, and they understands that I had to miss a few weeks there. But like I say, Into House keeps me honest. My boy Larry, and every Friday when we get together to do a little meetup, it's nice because one of the main things I miss more than anything is just the folks in the chat. A lot of y'all are my friends. I think of you as my closest peeps. So you get to miss in your friends. So it's good to be back streaming. But like I said, Into House keeps me honest. Let's see here, folks everywhere saying, hey, what's up? Yeah, so as I was saying, this project was a Zack Snyder thing. He originally did. I take that back. He originally did the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I thought was a project that couldn't be done. Who wants to remake Dawn of the Dead? It's a classic. The main people who are going to see it are the Romero fans and the fans of the original, and they're not going to like it. So sorry, I got distracted. This is the scene at the beginning with the murder mystery where Rorschach, somebody kills the comedian, and then we find Rorschach come to investigate it all. So this is where the famous logo comes with the button with the bullet or with the blood splattered across the face, the same as the clock that the countdown clock to the apocalypse, the doomsday clock. Geez, why was that so difficult? Anyway, so Zack Snyder originally was a music video director. Getting back to the Zack Snyder story. See, I'm going to tie this all back together. I even have pen and paper in case I get sidetracked. So Zack Snyder was a music video director. ZZ Top, Morrissey, a handful of other people that were, interesting choices. So he did the Dawn of the Dead remake, and it just seemed doomed to fail to me. So he did a few interesting things with it. He made the zombies run, which a lot of people don't like. He kind of changed the plot around a little bit. He added more of a virus thing to it. I mean, obviously the plot's changed around, but the idea of folks hunkering down in the mall as to live through the zombie apocalypse is kind of universal, So when he did that, I was very impressed by his work. Just the way it was shot, the tone of the film, the idea that he was even able to, make that movie out into a thing. It also takes place in Milwaukee, and I live outside of Milwaukee, so it has, it touches me a little bit. Although I can't figure out what island they're going to when they go at the end, but that's irrelevant. Um, let's see here. Oh, it says, "Hey, Erica, how do you say Coraline better than Nightmare?" I was offended. I'm just going to be talking about Nightmare Before Christmas. Wow. She a hoe. It's okay. Hello, the Swamp Kitty hoe. Oh, man, who a hoe? Her husband's a hoe, though. Man, it's got out of control. And then Erica says, "Damn, Cal, tell me how you really feel." So, yeah, the chat is already alive and jumping at 1 a.m. on the full moon. Keyboard did me dirty, Erica. Yeah, blaming the keyboard. I see how it is. So in the middle of my Zack Snyder biography, right now this is the cool opening iconic scene where they do a montage of all the original old school superheroes. One of the great things about The Watchmen is it takes place over many decades. So we see original group of superheroes, and then we see their descendant, sort of people who the next generation of superheroes that comes after them. So this beginning scene where you see many of the characters and how they grow up and their lives and what influenced them and stuff. Like we see Rorschach's mother's a prostitute and all this stuff. And it's all to The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. So it's a very memorable scene, and it's Snyder's one of his greatest skills, I think, is the montage. He does really good, he's a music video director. That's what montage is. It's, can I tell a story in 3 minutes? So as I was saying, after he pulled off Dawn of the Dead and nobody thought he would be able to, he moved on to 300. And I don't know if you've seen 300 or not, but it's also pretty damn amazing. It's a graphic novel, much like this, but it's done in like a sepia tone or a sepia tone. I never know how to say that word. I always thought it was sepia, but some people say sepia. So if you got thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat or the comments of how you pronounce that sort of faded tan film look. But I thought 300 was kind of amazing. It looked like a comic book. It felt like it was drawn by hand. There was something about it that just popped compared to regular film. The cinematography in particular was just like use of shadows and contrast and stuff. But that movie did really well, and it also was like pre Game of Thrones, or around the time Game of Thrones. So it really hit at a time when people were anxious for that type of content, that sort of fantasy adventure content, Let's see. Let's get back to the folks in the chat here. What happened here, Erica? May out here shooting people. Oh yeah, they're still they're talking about the hoe shoe, and if it fits, wear it. I have no idea how we got into this hoe discussion, but gosh bless you all for I think they prefer to be called sex workers. Just saying, that's all I'm saying. But so we're still doing the old school journey through time, and we see that Andy Warhol has painted various superheroes. Night Owl is one right there. Folks often assume that my Night Owl moniker comes from this movie. Some people would say, "Oh, a big Watchmen fan?" It's like, no, I've just been up my whole life in the middle of the night, dude. So when this movie had a night owl in it, it immediately grabbed my attention. So getting back to the Zack Snyder-a-thon, as he finished up 300, and a lot of people were impressed that he was able to adapt a graphic novel like that. That's when he did this. Like I said previously, people thought that The Watchmen wasn't anything that a person could translate into film. So after he pulled off 300, he got a chance to do it, and he actually kind of did a pretty amazing job. Right now we see as the times there are changing is playing, we see the Watchmen picture, the main ones here at the end that we're going to learn. Dr. Manhattan, Night Owl, Rorschach, oh God, I can't even remember what Malin Ackerman's name is. The Scarlet something, I forget. But as I was saying with this movie, and there's the big directed by Zack Snyder, as there's riots in the streets and a huge explosion. And there we see the smiley face button with the bloody clock logo on it. Let's see, are the folks in the chat? That's a whole other conversation. Man, that's what I'm talking about. Bruh. Uh-huh. Play the ludicrous. She's a hoe. Now why would you call them women garden tools? He's coming back to these comments when we're still talking about hoes in different area codes. Well, you know what I mean? You do got hoes in the different area codes. Ludicrous predicted it for all of us. But here we see the detectives in the apartment where the comedian was thrown out of a, whatever it is, 20-story window or whatever. And some of the camera shots in this are amazing. Like even now, it's the camera's doing a huge crane pullback through the city off of the people in a balcony. Like I'm sure this was all done CGI, but it, once again, something you'd never would be able to do before CGI. Like you couldn't, even a helicopter, you wouldn't be able to do that with a telephoto lens. It's just, but that shot, it's brand new to the world at that point. And one of the other reasons this movie was considered unfilmable is, in general, you don't like voiceover for your characters. It's considered to be, I don't know, as far as filmmaking goes, you're not supposed to have people do voiceover. I don't mind it, but there are certain film purists who think everything needs to be played out in front of you. Like if you went and saw a play, you wouldn't be able to hear the inner monologue of the characters on the screen, or standing on the stage, I mean. So there are purists in film who think you should never have voiceover because it's a cop-out. It's you're showing things that the audience should be able to figure out from the actor's performance and from the dialogue. But Rorschach narrates most of this. Rorschach's played by Jackie Earle Haley. He was primarily, to me, I know him from Breaking Away, I think it was called. Let me double check. Actually, before Breaking Away, he was Kelly Leak in The Bad News Bears. Let's see. He was on the Planet of the Apes TV series. He was on the Waltons TV series. Yeah, Bad News Bears, Kelly Leak, and Bad News Bears and Breaking Chaney. He was also in Damnation Alley. I do remember that. That's a really cool George Peppard movie about the end of the earth, where like him and Jan Michael Vincent get in this weird Hummer SUV thing, and they work their way across the blown out world after a nuclear war, and it's kind of like half Mad Max, half zombie movie kind of thing. It's pretty wild. But yeah, Breaking Away was the one I mainly know him from. It's like a small town dudes trying to break out of their boring lives and find better, aspire to grow up to something other than just the same old factory job or whatever. So it's like, I think it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars and stuff. He was also in Losing It with Tom Cruise. It's like a bunch of dudes go to Mexico to get laid, and I think that's where I learned what a Spanish fly was and stuff. I don't know. 80s movies had a lot of kids teenagers trying to get laid. That was like the plot of a bunch of movies. He was also in Doll Man, if you're familiar with Doll Man. He was in Maniac Cop 3. Jackie Earle Haley was also in Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell. I didn't realize Semi-Pro had come out before The Watchmen. That's interesting. He was in Shutter Island. He was the new Freddy when they redid the Freddy remake. A lot of folks didn't like that. They seem to agree with the casting as him being like a potential cool Freddy type guy. If you're going to replace Robert Englund, it better be an actor that's got some gravitas. And Jackie Earle Haley kind of had a bad complexion most of his life. I don't know what it was from. I don't know if he has scarring or if it was just, zits or what. But so a lot of people associate him with like kind of a rough, beat up skin. And I think that's also how he got the Freddy connection going there. And then he was in Dark Shadows. He was in Lincoln, Parkland, the RoboCop remake, the remake of Birth of a Nation, which I never saw. I was always interested in. He was in the Dark Tower movie. He was in Alita Battle Angel. Yeah, I don't know. But Jackie Earle Haley kind of like from this had a resurgence of people were like, oh yeah, he's good. Because he fell into that John Travolta before Pulp Fiction trap where he was famous all through the 70s, and in the 80s he just faded away and couldn't really get a job. But let's see, where's the chat at? You guys all still talking about hoes? It's a hoe take. You guys are having a regular hoedown in the chat. Not even Santa would drop that many hoes. Yeah, this is just horrific. Get it? Horrific. I got nothing. LOL. Freddie, what a real hoe, though. If a person let you sleep over their house on the first date, wouldn't you consider that a hotel? This is just a whole bunch of puns. Only if you leave a hoe train, The Godfather. The hoe train. In the movie that I'm supposed to be watching and not talking about hoes, although there was a section with a prostitute. So, yeah, I mean, it all ties together with hoes. You guys are on track. Keep doing what you're doing. Here we see Night Owl, Patrick Wilson. He's mostly known for being, what's his name? Ed Warren from Ed and Lorraine Warren in the Conjuring movies, but he's also in those Insidious movies. So he's like the big Blumhouse golden child. Let's look at his filmography. He was started off in Angels in America, and then The Alamo and Phantom of the Opera. And then I guess the first movie I came into contact with him was Hard Candy. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Hard Candy. That's a wild ride where like a kid creep ends up having one of his victims come back and torture him. And it's like part hostile, part like, I don't know, emotional therapy movie. It's rough, but it's a lot of people love it because it feels like a, victims getting revenge kind of thing. Let's see. Most of these I've never heard of until The Watchmen. So, but he was cranking stuff out. Yeah, he's working. I see he's doing like 4 or 5 projects a year. He was in the A-Team. He was in Prometheus, The Conjuring, Insidious Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Space Station 76. I never heard of that. Bone Tomahawk. I love Bone Tomahawk. If you haven't seen that, very good movie. He's good in it as well. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. He was the President's voice. Conjuring 2, Insidious, The Last Key, The Nun. I didn't realize he was in The Nun. Like I said, he plays Ed Warren in the fictional, Lorraine Warren-averse, I guess you would call it, all the different stories that they tell. As the movie I'm supposed to be watching, here we see Rorschach is showing up at Night Owl's apartment and hands him the comedian's button, his signature symbol of the smiley face. I don't know. It seems like Forrest Gump is going to sue. But he explains to him that someone's murdered the comedian, and they go down into his bat cave. This movie is all based on, it's basically a parody of superhero films, which is part of the reason I really dig it. Night Owl is supposed to be Batman, obviously. Dr. Manhattan is supposed to be Superman, like the all-powerful God among us type character. Rorschach is also a bit of a Batman character, like the detective. But I think that they took Batman and split his 2 personalities apart: the gadget wizard and the detective. So Rorschach is this troubled, person who's up in the middle of the night and lived an abused life. And then the Night Owl is kind of this old middle-aged dude who's just lost the lust for life after being he's no longer a superhero. He just feels like now he's some retired nerd, and that's really all he is. Let's see, where are we at with the hoe talk? Cal says he's no hoe. And then Erica says he's hoe number 1, and numero uno. And then a daily hoe. And now everybody's upset over being called a hoe. You kids play rough. It's going to happen. I thought my ladies had my back, shaking my head. So, yeah, once again, the hoe train running wild in the comment section. I'm surprised Echo hasn't had more hoe talk. He loves a good hoe. Speaking of that, where's Professor Macabro? Nobody loves hoes more than that guy. And once again, they prefer to be called sex workers. Here we see, they're in the Night Owl's lair in the basement. It's supposed to be like kind of the Bat Cave where you can see all his old stuff, and you see it connects to the subways. So Rorschach is getting ready to kind of wander off into the darkness. I'm at the 21:17 mark. Oh wow. HBO Max now has a counter on screen. That's a new development. All the previous streams I've done is me complaining about how HBO only shows the countdown, not the actual time. So I am currently at 21, 32, 33, 34, 35. Let's see where we're at with these hoes. I mean, Heidi Ho. Echo loves none hoes. I'm having none of hoes. I'm gonna stay in the chat but watch my movie. What movie are you watching, man? Telling all Echo's secrets. He likes a good hoe and a bad hoe. I was really just trying to conjure Echo and see what he'd say. I like when Echo pops up and has a word. And a bad hoe. As I was saying, there's like kind of these superhero parodies in here. So now we're meeting Adrian Veidt, and he's Ozymandias, and he's kind of this. I don't even know who you would describe him. He's sort of like a Captain America type character, but he's really sort of this corporate baron type dude. He somehow represents capitalism in a weird way, but the whole thing is a period piece. So we see, the reporters are all in, like supposed to be, I guess, 60s or 70s garb, even though this is taking place in the 80s. The movie itself says that once Dr. Manhattan was created, they had him go and end Vietnam. And because of that, like the shift of the world was different. And that's why this is a different world than the one we live in, because it's a different timeline. Man is watching Baghead. Oh, I've been meaning to watch Baghead. I think that's a Shudder. I think somewhere. I think so. I don't remember. But Baghead was on my list of ones to watch on one of these channels. Yeah, like so I was saying, Patrick Wilson, primarily Blumhouse's Golden Boy. Also, he plays the villain in Aquaman, or whatever. I guess you could call him the villain, but he's just kind of a general douche. So he's kind of blown up as a good everyman actor. I like him. I don't know. He never rubs me the wrong way, but he never I never said Patrick Wilson kills it. He's just sort of there. He does a good job of being a solid 7.5. Watchmen came out in 2009. I originally first saw it at a midnight screening. Because I was a huge fan of the graphic novel, I wanted to see this movie. So they had a 12:00 back before they did the early release, where Thursday movies that it start at 7 p.m. or the Friday movies start the day early. But they used to have a thing where it couldn't come out till Friday, so there'd be a 12:01 showing on Thursday night, like as soon as Friday turned over. And this was one of my 12:01 showings. The theater was relatively quiet, and I remember there were some ladies in front of me who had no idea what was going on. I don't know why they were there. I think maybe they were just there in the middle of the night, just needed something to do. Maybe they worked third shift and had the night off or something. But I remember them just being like, I don't understand what's going on. And I almost kind of wanted to start explaining to them. It's like, just leave them be. IMDb says The Watchmen is a 7.6 out of 10, more than 500,000 votes. So, it's a pretty solid show. 7.6 out of 10. That's way better than average. IMDb, the critics gave it like a 65%, and the audience gives it a 71. In general, this movie, I always wondered if it would be easy to follow for folks who never read the graphic novel. I think they probably would prefer it better. My main gripe with it is Zack Snyder's shooting style, where he films these comic book adaptations. His move is just to use the actual comic book as his storyboards. So like if you're familiar with the old Frank Miller Dark Knight Batman, and then you see Batman versus Superman, it's like these are just straight up shots taken from covers and splash pages and stuff. And that's the same with this movie. 300, he does it as well. He just straight up takes the shots from the comic book and tries to recreate them on screen. And here's the first appearance of Dr. Manhattan and his big giant blue dong. I think this is one of the things that scars a lot of people about this movie is just this giant blue penis. It's like it's one of the ways they're supposed to illustrate that he's, the ultimate, like he's basically the statue of David with a bigger dong, instead of everybody cracking on Statue of David being cold. this guy's just this like perfect, all ripped muscles and everything, and he walks around with his junk just hanging to show like his masculinity or whatever. When they redid The Watchmen, there's a sequel to The Watchmen. They did it in the comic books as well, but there's a HBO show, like I think it's 8 parts or something, maybe 6 parts. Regina King and a bunch of other folks are in there. And it's a really good follow-up to this. I don't know how anyone would be able to watch it if they hadn't seen this movie or read the graphic novel. But if you're familiar with this first property, yeah, I definitely recommend checking out the Watchmen series on HBO or Max or whatever. It was helmed by Damon Lindelof, the guy who did Lost. So if you think about all the good stuff from Lost and kind of get rid of the bad stuff, he's responsible for most of the good stuff. Where am I? Oh boy. May had them hoes built up for a long time. She going crazy. Erica Saver. No. Them hoes been cut. Cal says a blue what? Yeah, here he is. We can see that Dr. Manhattan can manipulate, he's basically a god on Earth. So he can manipulate things around him. He can be in multiple places at one time. He can transcend time and space. He's just a living god. Yeah, here we see he touches her head and gives her a delve back into her own memories, and she remembers her mother and father fighting and stuff. This movie is the graphic novel that it's based on is so dense with themes and elements of the original main topic is who watches the Watchmen, the concept being like we hire people to watch us, our police, our government, etc. So if they're in charge of watching us, who's in charge of watching them? And if you notice, most problems we have in our country and stuff is the fact that our people in power are unchecked. So the movie itself or the comic itself first delves into that as a surface question, if we put people in positions of power and then there's no one above them, they begin to act as if they're, no laws. It also delves into like the psyche of being a superhero, which, the why different ones do it. Rorschach is obviously trying to like work through his violence. Malin Ackerman's character is basically the daughter of the Carla Gugino character, and she, inherited the job from her mother, for lack of a better way of describing it. Dr. Manhattan was an accident. Later on, we'll see his story coming up, but we learn the psychology of what makes these superheroes tick more so than like something like 60 years of Batman to try to understand the guy. Here we tell the story within a first act. Oh, let's see. We're back to Ho talk. Beaky. Sorry, I was playing Fallout 4. So I'm glad, Echo. They got to talking about sex workers and whatnot. It wasn't anything you needed to hear. He's holding a piece of fried chicken. Echo, stop playing and get some hoes. And some on his base. That a long way from blue balls. Yeah, exactly. That's a good joke. That blue ball joke is a good one. I will steal it later. Fallout hose make me nuke powered hose. Oh wow, this got crazy. Now we got super powered hose. Echo, we heard you got hose in different area codes. Man's laughing. I am ho free. I'm a reformed ho lover. Well, that's no fun. No ho diet, only good girls. And Erica says, well, that's no fun. So, that's, we are currently 34 minutes into this stream, and it's been primarily ho talk in the chat and our sex worker talk. I apologize. You guys have reeled me into your crass trap. Damn it. Now I'm doing it. Here we see, I got to figure out what in the hell is the name of the superhero that Malin Ackerman plays. I'm drawing a blank on her name. Her and her mother are the same one. Is it the somebody in the chat will probably have me, but 2009. Her name is Silk Spectre. Thank you. I knew it was something weird like that. Her uh, uh, non-superhero name is Laurie Jupiter, but she's the Silk Spectre 2. Her mother was the original Silk Spectre. I like Malin Ackerman. I think she's very pretty in this. That's part of what her role is. She's supposed to be like beautiful and tough. She's kind of a Wonder Woman character for most people to understand. There's a certain amount of sexiness to her. At the same time, she's also kicking ass. She did a whole bunch of TV stuff I've never seen. She did Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. So she overcame that somehow. She was Tori on Entourage. The Watchmen was her big break. Then she was in The Proposal with Sandra Bullock. Couples Retreat. How I Met Your Mother. Catch 44. And a couple episodes of Robot Chicken. Yeah, she's a Rampage with The Rock. She plays the scientist. I remember her in that. Other than that, she's a lot of TV, a lot of just popping up. At a certain point, she just kind of becomes herself. Like in a lot of stuff, she's playing Malin Ackerman. I don't know. Here's another shot that wouldn't be possible until CGI came along. They do this pan out or a crane shot from a raining cemetery, and it pulls up real high and goes through the gates that say cemetery, and it pulls through the metal and stuff. It's the things that David Fincher did a lot of it with Fight Club and Panic Room, where you use regular shots, but then you add stuff in CGI to make it feel like you went through the arm of a coffee cup or pulled through a metal gate or something, So now they're at the comedian's funeral, and all of our heroes are kind of reuniting. At a certain point in this historical timeline of this movie, superheroes became things that people didn't want around. They were no longer needed because they had Dr. Manhattan to solve all their problems. Let's see what kind of hoe talk we got going on here. I got a couple of homies here. God damn it. Lose the hoe talk is crazy. Yeah, hoe talk is crazy. We're all just celebrating Christmas early. Exactly. And man says exactly. So good. I'm glad I'm caught up with that. So now here we see Silk Spectre going to visit her mother. Her mother is played by Carla Gugino or however you pronounce her name. I love me some Carla Gugino. Every time she turns up in something, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be good. She's been in a bunch of things that I've enjoyed. She has 110 acting credits and 4 movies coming out. Damn, you be working. Let's go back to the beginning. When did she first start acting? She started in 1988, did a bunch of TV, Webster, Who's the Boss, Alf, all the hits, Falcon Crest, the Ferris Bueller TV show, Quantum Leap, just so much TV. And then she was son-in-law, the Pauly Shore movie. She was the college girl that Pauly Shore falls in love with and goes back to the farm with. She was in Miami Rhapsody, The War at Home. She was in Michael, the movie with John Travolta where he becomes an angel, or is an angel, I should say. Snake Eyes. That was with Nicolas Cage. It was a Brian De Palma one. Spy Kids. She's the mom in there. Spy Kids 2 and Spy Kids 3. So she got The Singing Detective. I've never seen The Singing Detective. I need to see that one. That's a Robert Downey Jr. joint that I heard that when he was struggling with his career, he did really well in that. And that was one of the footholds he got into getting a career back. She was in Sin City. She's great in Sin City. Night at the Museum, American Gangster, Righteous Kill, The Watchmen, Women in Trouble, Apocrypha, Electrolux, Entourage, Sucker Punch. That's right. We have to get back to the works of Zack Snyder. Batman versus Superman, Wolves. She also was in Robot Chicken. She was in Justice League. So it's interesting. Once you she works with the same directors over and over again. She's in all of Robert Rodriguez's stuff, and she's in pretty much all of Zack Snyder's stuff. She's also in Lisa Frankenstein. Shout out to that. Yeah, here we see kind of a really rough scene to deal with where the comedian, who's a good guy, basically sexually assaults Silk Spectre, and later on she kind of like falls in love with him, like she has a secret thing for him. It's all in the novel. It's all very complicated. I'm surprised they even kept all this in the movie because it's kind of controversial. But this is probably the first time I ever saw Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's got star power. The first time I saw him, like even in this, it's like I don't know who this guy is, but he holds the screen. And then later on, when he becomes Negan and The Walking Dead and stuff, you feel like, oh yeah, you can see the strength of his, his character or whatever. Like he as a person, he's charismatic enough where you can just let him act and it'll be entertaining. Yeah, this is all very distasteful to have going on. But oh, that's right. In the middle of it, I believe somebody shows up and stops them. It's the guy with the noose around his neck, who the Watchmen sequel is. Yeah, exactly. There he is. He shows up and beats up the comedian and stops the assault from going on. The Watchmen show with Regina King tells the whole story of this guy. So they tie back to the previous generation of superheroes. Like I say, this covers a couple generations of superheroes in the movie. Now that we've cleared the room of hoes, let's see how much hoe talk is going on in the chat. Bubba Hotep, next movie after this. I should have known. Mayan says it's Hovember. Cal's worried about going to hell. Mayan says it's a holiday. Oh my God. No. Let me turn off the holiday. So here we see the funeral scene in the rain. Classic movie trope. The sky is raining to represent the tears of the people at the funeral, and it's also sort of a weird bummer, like you want your people to be around when you're being buried, but if it's raining, they kind of, are standing there with umbrellas and anxious to move on. And I love this part. They send Dr. Manhattan to Vietnam. We see, like I said earlier, the Richard Nixon uses Dr. Manhattan to end the Vietnam War. And we see the giant Dr. Manhattan walking through the rice paddies, and everybody's like surrendering to him. And now he has underwear on. It's like, even then in the war, they're like, all right, cover up your blue dong, dude. It's just too much. Y'all hear they're trying to ban hot Cheetos and Oreo cookies? I have not. Mayan is intrigued as well. I wasn't aware that they were trying to do such a thing. People are going to be mad. Like I was saying, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and then we'll get back to the Zack Snyder oeuvre. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's first role was, oh boy, he's had a long career as well. 1991, Uncaged. Sliders, Walker, Texas Ranger, ER, all sorts of TV, JAG, CSI, Star Trek Enterprise. Then he was in The Sheriff in Dead and Breakfast. I own Dead and Breakfast, and I never saw it. I need to watch that. Monk, OC, Weeds. Yeah, lots and lots of TV. He was in Fred Claus. He was in The Watchmen. Looks like that appears to be his first big role where he's supposed to carry it. So this movie kind of half discovered him. And then he was in The Losers, Jonah Hex, Texas Killing Fields, The Possession, the Red Dawn remake. He was a voice in, oh wow, Tekken 7. He played Negan. That's interesting. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. He was Thomas Wayne. I was unaware of that. It says he was uncredited. He was in Heist, which is a pretty decent movie. He was in Rampage as well. And The Walking Dead. 95 episodes as Negan, and then another 6 in Walking Dead, Dead City. So yeah, he's Walking Dead. Walking Dead blew up for him. But the comedian is a really intriguing character as far as the story of this whole thing goes. He's the guy who is basically so jaded and frustrated with the world that he just makes a joke out of everything. So he's kind of the Joker almost, but he's a good guy. Um, and his whole thing is like he's basically a villain who's how to describe it. He's a complicated character. He's both a good guy, but he's also sort of a villain because his moral system is broken because he doesn't believe in humanity anymore. One of the real things about this that's strange is this movie is or the graphic novel, any of this, whatever the source material, is a sort of a parody of superheroes. So the absurdity of them all standing around in their superhero outfits, just kind of talking, is it's supposed to feel like stupid, like all these people are kind of hanging out and interacting with each other, like having dinner, but they're wearing like their little eye makeup and their suits. And there you can see now the Joker has added kind of the comedian has added a bit of a Captain America thing to it. So he's basically like a broken Captain America, I think is what they're trying to get at. Let's see here. They're saying the additives that are causing health issues. Oh, so that's why they're trying to get rid of Oreos and hot Cheetos. Yeah, well, I mean, the preservatives in things, it's kind of outrageous. Yeah, them and Pop-Tarts among the worst food for your health, they say. Man says, oh. So we here at Night Owl Movie Talk in no way endorse or condone or begrudge anybody for their love of awful foods. Goodness knows I've eaten my share. But, if Flamin' Hot Cheetos are killing people, you got to put them behind the counter with the cigarettes. Yeah, here we see the people in the streets are rioting back when they abolished the superheroes, and you can see the people have signs like badges, not masks, and ban on masks, and no vigilantes and stuff because they're so anti-superhero that they're throwing their trust into the government. And here we see Night Owl pull up in his big flying owl ship. And the comedian jumps down and just starts beating up people in the street because he don't care anymore. So yeah, like I say, he's basically like broken Captain America. Oh, let's see where we at here. Bones says, "Where the hose at?" Boy, did you come to the right chat, my friend. Welcome, Mr. Bones. It's always nice to have you here, friend of the channel. When are you guys watching Late Night with the Devil? I might need to jump in on that with you guys, unless I already missed it. So as I was saying, getting back to my Zack Snyder retrospective, when last we left his career, he had moved on from 300 to the Watchmen, and he became the guy who adapted comic books. And because of that, he then did Sucker Punch. He also did Legends of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole. You would think as a guy who calls himself an owl that I would have seen that movie, but I didn't. It was like an animated thing. And then he did the Sucker Punch. And if you've ever seen Sucker Punch, ay caramba, that's one. It's a very well-made movie, and it's interesting, and it's very thought-provoking, but you need a shower afterwards. It's all about assault and against women and various other things that just really are gross. But the movie itself is supposed to be empowering, but it's, how to even describe Sucker Punch. It's a very visually, it's a visual feast. It's amazing to look at. It looks cool. It's very rock and roll, fighting and kicking. It's almost like a Kill Bill type movie, but there's like a second tier to it of what's really going on. And it's a very heavy yuck movie. And then he did the Man of Steel. remake. So that's the first time that anybody on screen has really had Superman as the Jesus on Earth type character. Prior to that, he's pretty much just a guy who can punch his way out of problems and do anything. He's kind of the Ubermensch, as he's often referred. But the Zack Snyder version is the first one to like really develop the idea that he's more of a god among us, which is what Zack Snyder's take on Superman was, the God Among Us video game. If you look at the Justice League stuff he did, all those are more of the Gods Among Us type versions of those characters. So then after Man of Steel, he did Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. And then he did the Justice League, and then Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, the Justice League bit is all convoluted and messy. He had this idea to, do the Superman movie, and then the Superman Part 2, he wanted to incorporate Batman. So that's why he did the Batman versus Superman, which is a subsection of the Dark Knight Frank Miller graphic novels. So he also then scored to do the whole Justice League, which is the buildup. And then that way they could, he would have completed his DC universe. Well, it was massively underperforming and a lot of folks didn't like it. Visually, it's actually better than most of the Marvel movies because it's a lot, brighter colors, a lot more cool imagery. A lot of the Marvel movies are sort of desaturated and sort of cut and dry, but they're supposed to look real life, as where these movies are supposed to look hyper realistic. So he shot Justice League, and at that time Warner Brothers was purchased by the Discovery people. That transition, there's always new like corporate heads and folks that come in and they want to put their own stamp on this new product, right? So the new people who were taking over the DC Warner Brothers, movies, they didn't really like Zack Snyder, and they thought that part of the problem that those movies were underperforming was him. So the new regime pretty much wanted to get rid of Zack Snyder, and around that time of filming Justice League, Zack Snyder's daughter passed away. She committed suicide. I shouldn't even say she. I believe she was transgender, and there was a whole issue with he's very Christian, and they had falling out issues. So it's a real gossipy, gross kind of thing. And he had to step away from the completion of Justice League. And they brought in Joss Whedon, who was the guy that did the Avengers. He's also known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show and all that stuff that in that universe. So his Avengers movie was a huge box office success, both critical and money wise. So it did really well. So they brought Joss Whedon on to re-edit the Zack Snyder Justice League film, and the Whedon version was just terrible. So when that came out and it got panned by the critics, and then the people who wanted to see Zack Snyder finish his vision, they hated it as well. So between the critics not liking it and the already established fan base not liking it, the Joss Whedon Justice League movie really got, beat down. So then later on, they released the original Justice League, the Snyder Cut, as it became known. There's also another Snyder Cut, Justice is Gray, I believe it's called, where it's a black and white version of it. The primary difference between the Joss Whedon Justice League and the Zack Snyder Justice League is the Zack Snyder stuff was shot in open matte. So it was intended to be shown on an IMAX screen, real humongous. So like the Joss Whedon version is, in the letterboxes, right? There's a black bar on the top and the bottom, and it runs like that. Meanwhile, the Zack Snyder version is the 4x3, so it's like a square in your screen because it was going to be shown blown up in a huge IMAX. So there's a lot more headroom in a lot of the shots, and some of the composition of the shots look very strange, but there is a clear visual difference between the two films. The Snyder version, as he's wont to do, is way longer. Snyder, like a lot of people fall into big directors these days, they fall into the trap of once they have success, they frequently make their movies too long. It happens with Tarantino. It happened with Peter Jackson. It happens. Very few directors stay with an under 2 hour movie after they get big enough to have final cut. Let's see where we're at here with the chat. Oh boy, y'all been talking up a storm out. There's all sorts of hoe talk in here. Mr. Bones. I am the devil. I am here to do the devil's work. That he knows. Hello, yeah, he is. Echo said he's retired from hoes, so now they're informing Bone. Erica liked Sucker Punch. Yeah, Sucker Punch is weird. I mean, like I'm saying, it's a visual feast, and if you have a stomach for the the subplot of that movie, it's actually interesting. And like I said, it's got a killer soundtrack, and like a lot of the fight scenes are real, like women empowerment type stuff. There's a lot there that's cool, but there's a lot there that makes you need a hot shower too. I watched Late Night the other night. Well, you never watched a movie and thought I would have liked this better if it ended 3 minutes before it did. That was a discussion me and my hetero life mate Larry, the horror cat dad. That was our kind of consensus. We really enjoyed the film all the way up till the end with kind of the bizarro twist to it. I don't want to ruin it because it's not even a week old yet, but I had to watch that movie. It's about a late night talk show, or I host a late night talk show, and it's called Night Owls. My show's called Night Owls. And then it's got all this creepy horror stuff, and it's done, cool 70s style. It feels like old Johnny Carson or Tom Snyder. I remember the year Sucker Punch came out, everyone's dressed as them for Halloween. Yeah, that's a good one because they're dressed kind of, brothelish. So you don't have to be sexy, whatever. You can just be, Erica says, yeah, that sucks. It was good. Just the part where I thought it was going to end would have been better when they all went to. Yeah, that was exactly what Larry and I thought. Erica's never heard of it. Yeah, it's currently playing on Shudder. It just started last Friday. It's called Late Night with the Devil. I saw a bunch of it on social media. I think maybe they had early theater screenings or something because a lot of my critic friends who get advanced screening tickets and stuff, they all saw it and they were very big on it. So, now they're informing Erica it's on Shudder, et cetera, et cetera. It's the new hot shit everyone's talking about. LOL. Yeah, that's why I said if you guys, Mayanne was talking about having a watch along at one point. That's why I was like, maybe I'll watch it with you guys and we can discuss what we don't like about it. Like I say, it's good all the way up through it. There's this famous dude James Randi who's like the amazing Randy, and he's a famous debunker. So like that character is represented in the show, and then they have like an exorcism kind of thing while a debunker is there. So there's a lot of good like verbal conflict, and there's some cool stuff with hypnosis and people fraud, psychics, like that old John Edwards guy. I don't know if you remember him crossing over with John Edwards. So there's all these like kind of interesting touchstone points in Late Night with the Devil. It's really good. Now, here's a scene that I kind of think about a lot, embarrassingly enough. Dr. Manhattan is making love to Silk Spectre, and she realizes that he's made himself into 2 or 3 people. So he's making love to her from, basically giving her the business, as 3 men instead of 1. But then he's also got a version of him that's doing work. And it kind of like visually represents sometimes, how you have sex. So you're going to do what you're going to do. And you got your brain's other places, even though it shouldn't be. And that's what she gets upset about. Like she can visually tell he's not all there like he's supposed to be, So they do a great job of illustrating a lot of emotions and especially like relationship stuff. The whole thing with Night Owl, he's so bored with his life and reached middle age where he has no more excitement that he's impotent. And there's a scene in here where he's having sex with Silk Spectre, and then like he finally and he can't get it up, and then they go get like in a fight and say beat up a bunch of criminals, and then all of a sudden he can get it up. Like there's just once again this episode brought to you by Dick Pills. Shout out to Pugwall 316. I feel bad Matt's been associated with that. Poor guy. Our friend Matt Pugwall 316 always makes the joke that all our videos are sponsored by Dick Pills because of that's a common thing that people seem to get advertising dollars for. But this case, maybe it is. Let's see here. Folks are talking about Late Night with the Devil. Have I seen The Seasoning House? It was rough. I haven't seen The Seasoning House. Where's that one playing at? Gareth from Video Tasties is here. Hell yeah, because I'd already mentioned Larry and I'd mentioned Matt, so I can't keep going without mentioning Video Tasties. Our buddy Gareth is one of my favorite streamers, one of my better friends here on the internet. He and I have done multiple streams together on his channel. You can go there and check out his back catalog. We've watched Wild Things, Men at Work, a couple of different Steven Seagal movies, a Chuck Norris movie. I love me some Gareth. And we have an upcoming stream of Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Overseas, it's just called a Remo. But if you're a fan of that film, be sure to keep an eye on Gareth's channel for that watch along. But yeah, it's not a party if Gareth isn't here. So let's see here. Folks are welcoming Gareth. I liked it all except how it ended. It should have ended like 3 minutes before where it did. Yeah, so I think that's probably still talking about the was that also your review of Seasoning House, Bones? Is that it should have ended 3 minutes earlier, just like Late Night with the Devil? Oh wow, I never realized that the night owl on here is also named Dan. Interesting. Here's the part where this is super deep too. Dr. Manhattan becomes so frustrated with humanity that he doesn't really feel like he's connected to the world anymore. He feels smarter than it or above it. And I think a lot of folks fall into that trap, that they see so much dumb stuff in the world that, they only see the idiocracy going on and they feel above it. And that's what Dr. Manhattan feels, that, the people on Earth are just kind of, dumb, bald monkeys. And he's this evolved super brain. And he goes and lives on Mars, I think it is. And he just isolates from the rest of the world. He only watches. He no longer helps. Which is an interesting, another concept. Like, if there was a Superman to solve all our problems and then one day just Superman left, then what? Folks are all saying hello to our friend Gareth. Bones says, no, he can't watch the scary stuff Erica watches. Yeah, I feel you, Erica. Erica's deep. Her name is EA Horror. I don't know what you want. Yeah. A lot of, speaking of Late Night with the Devil, part of the charm of that movie was the 70s talk show, like I mentioned, like Tom Snyder or Merv Griffin. So this does a good job of that. The Watchmen, there's 2 or 3 different like talk shows that they go to. It looks a lot like the end of the Joker, And there we see Rorschach without his mask. That's one of the things that takes place in the comic as well. We see one of the people out on the street carrying a sign that says "The end is nigh," and then later on you realize that redheaded dude is actually the Rorschach. Oh, let's see here. Oh, everybody's saying hello to Gareth. Yeah, so here he's on face to face with Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, it totally looks like Merv Griffin or Dick Cavett. But as I was saying about Zack Snyder, after the Justice League movies and the whole big debacle with that, he did Army of the Dead, a zombie heist movie that takes place in Vegas. One of my main issues with it is there's like this creepy like queen of the zombies in that movie, and she looks almost exactly like the queen of the demons in Night of the Demons from late 80s, 88, I don't know. But it's almost an exact ripoff. Like the cover on the Night of the Demons looks exactly like the lady from Army of Dead. I gave Army of the Dead a 5 out of 10. It was very mid. Some stuff was cool. Some stuff sucked. It was a lot of good performances, but they used this camera that like is supposed to do like an auto bokeh kind of thing, where the main subject is in focus, but then the rest of it is blurry. That's called a bokeh. And this camera itself, it like doesn't blur around it automatically. It's like this old school camera. and it looks like somebody wiped Vaseline all over the screen. Like it looks like crap. So that movie itself looks like you're watching it through, like, when a fire's burning and you see the heat waves and it's all blurry. That's kind of what the movie looks like. So Army of the Dead had a lot of problems with me regarding with that, but that was Netflix's attempt to get into, making original content. That was one of their bigger ones. And then there's what caused this watch along. Rebel Moon 1 and 2. I watched a Rebel Moon this past Christmas. I went back home. It's about an hour away, and I had one Christmas night with my mom and her boyfriend, and then I had a Christmas night with my cousin and my nieces. And I crashed on the floor at his house, and he left me the remote control. So I watched Rebel Moon while laying underneath the Christmas tree. And it was actually all right. I didn't mind it. It was very derivative of Star Wars. Like the whole time, it just felt like a Star Wars movie that was never made into a Star Wars movie. And that's exactly what it was. Apparently, Zack Snyder says he came up with the idea when he was in college, but that also sounds to me like him trying to cover his butt against litigation. The movie itself just feels like almost like if Rey from Force Awakens went on a different adventure. Like this feels the same type of thing. It's about a farm girl, and the Imperials show up in their big ships, and they want all the grain so they can feed their soldiers, but it would wipe out the village and they'd have nothing to eat, and they go to war, etc. And then she goes off on a big adventure and meets a bunch of people, and it becomes very Wizard of Oz like, where she builds up a crew the same way Luke builds up a crew. You got to have your furry walking carpet guy and your pirate and your old wizard. But it ends, the plot of it was too long. It was going to be like a 4-hour movie. So the Netflix people asked Zack Snyder to cut it into 2. So he basically did the Kill Bill thing too. They made 2 2-hour movies, Rebel Moon 1 and 2. So at the end of Rebel Moon 1, they tell you, be sure to come back the weekend of 4/20/4/19 to watch Rebel Moon Part 2. And the timing kind of cracked me up. I was like, when are people at home on the couch? Christmas time and 4/20. So it released this past weekend, and I watched Rebel Moon 2 Saturday night. And I had intended to do a live watch along of a double feature with them. I thought I would do Rebel Moon one night and then Rebel Moon 2 the other night. And in the middle of Rebel Moon 2, it just occurred to me, I can't subject you guys to 4 hours of that. Even this 2 hours and 43 minutes is going to be really hard to talk through. I don't know how the hell I would do 4 hours other than just say, boy, this really looks like Star Wars. So if you've seen Rebel Moon 1 or 2, be sure to put in the chat or the comments what your thoughts on those films. The critics are killing them. Most people just find it to be a very lazy mock version of Star Wars. Great value brand Star Wars is basically all it is. But I think it's also possible there could be a generation that grows up and in like 20 years, people love that movie. Like when I was a kid, there was a movie called Battle Beyond the Stars with the dude John Boy from the Waltons. And the spaceship has giant boobs on it. And it looks like a vagina with ovaries. Like it's way too over-sexualized. And at the time, everybody hated that movie and talked about how terrible it is. And now there's a whole like cult following for Battle Beyond the Stars. So maybe Rebel Moon in 15 years will be that, but we'll see. It feels a little too tame for it to be that. Oh, let's see here. The Seasoning House is like a mixture of The Whistleblower and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, just a little rougher. Yeah, I can imagine that. That is interesting. Don should read children's storybooks. Once upon a time, there was that might be my new thing. Where is it? I forgot. It must be in the other room. I have a book that I picked up, the famous artwork from. Well, fuck it, I'll just get it. I got this the Art of Horror Movies book, and it's pretty awesome. It's like all movie posters and old school stuff. And but there's like specific movies like Svengali and Abbott and Costello Meets the Mummies, and let's see here. The American vaudeville team, Straight Man Bud Abbott and comic Lou Costello, first started mixing humor and horror at Universal Pictures in 1941 haunted house comedy Hold That Ghost. Yeah, so I thought about sometime going through and just reading all this to you guys. See, you can put your children to bed as I read a book to y'all. There you go. Read us a chapter. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's going to be my Instagram feed for a while, is all the cool artwork that's in that damn book. Right now in the movie that I'm supposed to be watching, this is the scene where Dr. Manhattan, Billy Crudup, gets turned into Dr. Manhattan. There's this like molecular whatever thing, and he gets zapped and has his whole body deconstructed and reconstructed, and he ends up as a superhero. And this shot is mildly iconic. He looks at his watch, and it looks just like the doomsday clock that's counting down, just like the little smiley face button with the little red stripe. There's always that 5 minutes to midnight feel being repeated over and over again. And this is all very poetic. He's disassembling, so he's remembering the different things in life, like the first time a woman bought him a beer and slid him the mug, and he could feel the cold water on the outside of it, the perspiration. And, he felt like a man because a woman gave him a beer. There's all these like sort of deep poetic thoughts. And then there's this really cool iconic shot that you usually see from this movie where he gets zapped by all the lightning at once. And he looks like he's playing electric guitar. Like he goes as he's getting zapped, and because he's holding a watch in his hand, and there it is. He goes, and it looks, it's like the predecessor to Mad Max Fury Road. There's this like rocking out moment where he plays an air guitar and just gets zapped into nowhere though. And they talk about how he was completely deconstructed, so they had a funeral with an empty casket. And then slowly but surely, as the weeks go on, he starts reconstructing himself. So now we can see we're currently at the 1 hour, 8 minute and 50-second mark. Dr. Manhattan first starts showing up as like a ghost where he was killed. And then he starts to take more and more real form until he can actually move things. And we see like the evolution of his power. Like I said, he's basically supposed to be a Superman type character. And there's the big blue dong again. Hey, Dr. Manhattan packing heat, bro. Yeah, and that's he popped up naked in the lunchroom, and he's just floating there, all electrocuted and blue, and Mr. Fun flopping in the breeze. Let's see here. Erica says, I just got a message from someone on eBay asking if I'd like a money order for an item. That's interesting. Oh, if I take an order for a money order. I don't know. I've never had a money order. I mean, I didn't even know they still made them. I thought with Cash App and PayPal and all that, the money orders would fall to the wayside. That'd be a nah, Erica. Wait a second. Erica's, you know who? I remember him griping about someone not expecting those. Not accepting those. I think you still spelled it wrong. Isn't it supposed to be ACC? Never mind. I must have missed that. It was in one of his many rant vids. Interesting. So here we see, this is where Richard Nixon goes to Dr. Manhattan and asks him to end Vietnam for him. So the first thing we got to do is get you some underwear. And then here we also see Hollis Mason, who was the original Night Owl. He wrote a book, autobiography called Under the Hood. And because of that, he sort of like, pulls back the curtain on being a superhero. There's so many themes in this movie. Like I say, compared to Rebel Moon, where there's virtually nothing to talk about except how they're exactly ripping off Star Wars, this, you're able to dig into the multiple themes in the original Alan, why am I drawing a blank on the dude's name? The original graphic novel. Jesus Christ, now I gotta look it up. Vigilante Rorschach. The writers aren't credited for Alan Moore. Jeez, I can't believe I drew a blank on that. But that's what happens when you do live streams at 2 a.m. I can't math, Don. Jeez. Sorry, I didn't mean to correct you there, Bones. You my man. God, there were so many bitch fits. It was hard to keep up. Oh yeah. Wondering who y'all talking about. I think I have a vague idea. Yeah, here he's going. Dr. Manhattan is doing the voiceover and talking about the thoughts he's had and how, his first love of his life, his wife, he wasn't able to connect to her anymore, and then how he fell in love with the Silk Spectre, even though she's like way younger. So it's like basically Superman in a midlife crisis kind of thing. And then same with like the Silk Spectre 1, her whole story where she's like proud of her little cartoon porno magazines and stuff. Like it really delves more into the human psychology, and using the superheroes as sort of a caricature of people. Yeah, this is all good stuff here. It's hard not to get caught watching. Where she takes off the earrings that look like his Dr. Manhattan symbol and she throws them at him and he freezes them in time and space. Erica's shaking my head harsh. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So we've talked about Zack Snyder. Dr. Manhattan is played by Billy Crudup. Let's look at the Billy Crudup filmography. I think I first saw him in Almost Famous. Let's see where he started. He was General College from 1987 to 1991. I've never heard of that. He was in Sleepers. I should have known that. He was in Inventing the Abbots, Waking the Dead, Almost Famous. That was in 2000. That was the first time I noticed him. Then he was in Big Fish, Mission Impossible 3, The Good Shepherd, Watchmen, Public Enemies with Johnny Depp. He plays J. Edgar Hoover. He was in Eat, Pray, Love, Too Big to Fail, The Watch, Blood Ties, Glass Chin, The Longest Week, The Stanford Prison Experiment. That was a crazy one if you've ever seen that. Alien Covenant. He was in the prologue. He played Orem in Alien Covenant. He was uncredited in Justice League. He was Henry Allen. And now he's on the Morning Show TV series. I think that's on Apple, maybe? I don't know. So here we see one of the things that this has going on in it is historical fiction. I'm often a fan of historical fiction. We talk about it with Tarantino and some other people, where you take all the pieces of history as we know it, but then you tell different stories of them with them. So here we see Richard Nixon, and it's ridiculous. He's got this like comically long nose, and the prosthetics are kind of bad. He looks sort of crappy, but he's in this Dr. Strangelove type war room with Henry Kissinger. And, I think this is the whole thing where they have to move to DEFCON 2 because they're worried that Dr. Manhattan won't save them from nuclear annihilation. And that's part of the ticking clock of this. One of the things you often do in a story is you use ticking clock. Once you put a clock on something, the audience has a feeling of counting down or impending anxiety, and then suspense builds as the clock is counting. So this whole 5 minutes to midnight, the doomsday clock thing, that's, it's got a bunch of a ticking clock aspect to it. I see we're having off and on internet bumpages. So if at any point I get shaky, just hang with me. We usually fight through these things. Let's see here. Folks in the chat probably just still talking about hose. Yeah, here we see Ozymandias explaining how he's going to like corporatize his superhero kind of god of gods kind of thing. He's supposed to be like a, you know, I don't know. I don't want to use the word Trump, but he's like supposed to be like a rich businessman type guy, more like Clamp from Ghost or Gremlins 2. You know, he's to a certain extent supposed to be like Patrick Bateman. You know, he's just kind of a yuppie creep. Oh, let's see here. Man says she's going to bed. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Man, you rule. Yeah, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Like I said, one of the beauties of these pop-up late night streams is they have a slumber party effect. At a certain point, some of our cast members just have to get to sleep, damn it. So thank you for joining us, Mayan. I appreciate you always. Good night, Mayan. Yeah, folks are wishing Mayan good night because she's awesome. Oh, that's right. Mayan has like a live stream coming up with Matt Pugwall 316. Did y'all already do that? Were you talking about Chucky? Because I clicked to notify me. I hope I didn't miss that. But either way, I'll be sure to check that out. So check out Pugwall 316's channel and keep an eye out for his collab with Mayan regarding Chucky. And then even the people here, like most folks won't get this. There's like Ozymandias is explaining corporate dudes around him. It's like, I'm worth 3 times more than all of your companies combined, yada, yada, yada. He's flossing his wealth. Like he's, I don't know, Bill Gates or whatever. He's got all the money, Jeff Bezos. So when he's talking down to these other CEOs, these like captains of industry type people, one of the guys dead center is a representation of Lee Iacocca, the guy who was in charge of all the car companies. Well, I think he was in charge of General Motors, but I think he switched later on. He was like this big dude during the 80s when this was written. So for all you big Lee Iacocca heads out there, you Coca head? Lee Iacocca heads, here's your shot. Speaking of shot, that was kind of dope. A hitman has made an attempt to try to kill Ozymandias. Later on, we find out that it was a setup by him so he could, kill some of these other corporate heads. But they shoot his secretary in the leg, and you see the bullet do a through and through in her calf. And it's like, really, for a movie that's had very little violence and blood, it suddenly got gross quick. And Kal-El's taken off as well. Or are you just saying goodbye to Mayan? No, Eric is wishing him goodbye. So there, the assassin commits suicide before he can be captured. And then later on, when we watch the replay of it, we see that Ozymandias put the pill in the guy's mouth. And here, Night Owl and Silk Spectre are going out on a little date. She got her cute little beret on. But all this is from the comics. Like when I said that Zack Snyder uses the comics as his storyboards, like that shot is directly from the comic. I remember it specifically, that circular window at the Gunga Din restaurant. So here we see the burgeoning love affair between Night Owl and Silk Spectre. It's kind of interesting that she does the same thing for Dr. Manhattan that she does for Night Owl. Like she basically makes him feel alive again, like, in love, or I don't know, sex wise, or whatever you want to call it. It just, it reinvigorates his soul. It gives him something. His mundane life has got a zap of life to it again. So let's see where we're at with this. We're at the 1 hour, 20 minute mark, and there's exactly an hour and 20 minutes left. Oh, geesh. Yeah, see what I mean? 4 hours of Rebel Moon just would have been brutal. At least this, we're getting ready to come up to the Rorschach chapter, and then there's the whole part where Rorschach gets thrown in prison, and like, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're all trapped in here with me. And there's the classic, he tells his joke where he's like, Ghost. Well, actually, what is it? I saw it right here. It's I heard a joke once. Man goes to doctor, says he's depressed. Life seems harsh and cruel. Says he feels all alone in threatening world. Doctor says treatment is simple. The great crown Pagliacci is in town. Go see him. That should pick you up. Man bursts into tears. But doctor, he says, I am Pagliacci. Good joke. Everybody laugh. Roll on snare drums. Curtains. Yeah, the Pagliacci joke is kind of an old classic, but for Rorschach in particular, it just explains like when you're the person who makes everyone laugh, what are you supposed to do when you run out of laughter? And here we see Rorschach is in a crime scene. He goes to Moloch's house and then realizes that he's dead. And Moloch is played by Matt Frewer. Matt Frewer has been all over my life with film. 136 acting credits. I think I mainly know him as Max Headroom, but he was also Trash Can Man in the original Stephen King Stand, the ABC miniseries. He also was the host of the main character in a sitcom called Doctor when I was a kid. Yeah, I don't know. Matt Frewer has been all over stuff. Here he plays the villain Moloch, but he's been murdered. And when the police come to investigate, it's all set up and Rorschach has to escape, so he sets a bunch of cops on fire. There he shoots a guy with a grappling gun, but somehow, yeah, this is all just heavy-duty action and murder. It really breaks up some of the mundane slowness that had kind of settled in with the backstory of Dr. Manhattan being perpetually depressed with his giant blue dong. Let's see here. So here we see Rorschach is he's about to get captured, and he is fighting off cop after cop after cop, and now it's just straight up turned into Rodney King. They're all beating him down with sticks and arresting him. And they pull off his mask, and we see he's just a guy. Like there's nothing special about him. His mask has been like all special effects. It's been like a Rorschach test. If you're familiar with Rorschach tests, they show you an ink blot on a card, and you're supposed to tell what you see in the thing. It's basically like looking at clouds or something. So his mask is a Rorschach test, and as he speaks, it's always changing and adjusting and forming new symbols and imagery. So when they demask him and you see he's just some dude, like nobody you would ever pay attention to on the street, like whenever some horrible murderer gets caught, that's what I always think. It's like, wouldn't have even noticed that guy. Like just very average. So now the people in prison are all super happy because Rorschach's there and they've been waiting to get their revenge on him. Yeah, like I said, Jackie Earle Haley was he was a child star primarily with the Bad News Bears and the Breaking Away or whatever, but he'd fallen off and he wasn't really in stuff for like a good 10 years. So when maybe even 15. So when he gets used in this, it's almost like oh yeah, I forgot about Jackie Earle Haley. And then when he was put in as Freddy Krueger on the remake, he was basically the only thing from that movie that people actually will give credit to. They're like, well, I hate that Freddy remake, but at least the guy who was Freddy was all right. And here we get a glimpse into Rorschach's mind. Like they're showing him ink blots and he's taking his own, test. And all he sees is like prostitution and dead animals, and like his brain is just corrupted and broken. Chat's chill. For those of you in the chat left, I'm curious, how many of you have actually seen this movie? Same with the folks watching on later. Put in the comments if you've seen this one. Most folks have, especially if you're watching this along with me. You're probably familiar with it. But every now and then, I've got people who who just kind of want to hear the breakdown from, have someone explain it to them in my weird broken way of doing so. Speaking of broken ways, we see a flashback to when Rorschach was a kid and he's just beating the hell out of a bunch of bullies. It looks like that scene in A Christmas Story where Ralphie goes off on Scott Farkas. Yeah, we see from an early age, he's just like angry and frustrated and violent. Yeah, this is a very well shot movie. It's a lot of desaturated colors, or lots of big colors, but then like right now it's a blue filter. It's not desaturated. It's very cold, and it's supposed to be clinical and stuff. So, but it's same when the Dr. Manhattan gets turned. They use a lot of blue filter on his scenes as well. But then like the Night Owl scenes and the Silk Spectre scenes, a lot of those are more of an orange. The stuff with the original Silk Spectre, Carla Gugino or whatever. It's lots of yellows. Hey, full moon in the movie, full moon in real life. If you're a fan of full moon features, I recommend you check out my watch along of American Werewolf in London. I think that was maybe last month's full moon, or was that 2 months ago's full moon? I always find myself noticing that when it's going on, when the sky's all lit up with the big white orb. Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of folks just hanging out. So here we see that Rorschach's doing his detective work stuff. Like I say, this the Zack Snyder style is very indicative. He tries to make things look like the comic books. And in service of that, sometimes it feels like people who've already read the comic books are just getting a repeat. Like when I saw Batman versus Superman, that's all I kept thinking. It's like, I remember that from The Dark Knight. I remember that shot from The Dark Knight. And here there are two dogs ripping apart a body outside. We are at the 128:42 mark. Like I say, I feel like this movie probably didn't need to be this long, but at the same time, it's from a graphic novel, and there's so many pieces you can't take out without like taking away from the story itself. The original graphic novel has a secondary story that it keeps cutting away to. One of the characters is at a newsstand. A kid is like sitting at a newsstand reading a comic book. And every now and then they cut back, like it'll be a chapter of the one, and then it'll be like 2 or 3 pages of Tales from the Black Freighter, I think it's called. They made a comic adaptation, an animated adaptation, I should say, that it floats around out there that you can find on Blu-ray or whatever. And it's basically a similar story as to what's going on within the Watchmen plot. It's, sort of correlates in a different way to the themes. So you'll read, a good 15 pages about these superheroes, and there'll be like a 2 or 3 page break where we read about the pirates. And then there's, go back to the superheroes, then we go back to the pirates. The home media releases of this movie, lead the Tales of the Black Freighter lead me into that. They originally released the movie, the 2 hour and 43 minute cut, on like DVD and Blu-ray and stuff. But then they released the Watchmen motion comic, which was essentially the graphic novel, except it's the characters are cut out and there's depth to it, and they basically animate the live, the graphic novel. They bring it to life. It's not an animated feature. It's more like a story time or something. Someone reading straight along from the plot and, doing the voices and everything. And I think that version might have Tales from the Black Freighter as well. But they also released Tales from the Black Freighter as its own separate movie. I think it takes an hour to watch. And then there was the Watchmen director's cut, which is all of this, the 2 hour 43 plus Tales from the Black Freighter cut in like it's supposed to be. So that's the real version, I guess. as I recall, the DVD was mildly innovative. There was lots of like pop-ups and interactive stuff. Zack Snyder, a scene would come on and a button of info would pop up in the corner and you'd click it. And Zack Snyder would like walk onto screen and explain, oh, this shot is done by this. And, this was intended to be like this from the movie and all that. They don't really do that anymore with new stuff. I think streaming really cut back on a lot of the fancy stuff they were trying to figure out with DVD and Blu-ray technology. Let's see here. Here's the scene where it's kind of famous. Rorschach is in the prison line. He's in the mess hall and cafeteria, whatever, and he beats a guy with his own tray and then takes a thing of hot fries, the grease, the deep fryer, and throws it in this dude's face, and his face melts. And all the other prisoners kind of like freak out that how violent and crazy he is. That's when he says, "I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me." Now we cut back to Silk Spectre checking out the night cave. I don't know what the hell you would call it. The owl nest, maybe? Sure. And she's looking at his old like spaceship thing, basically his version of the Batmobile. It's like a flying kind of hovercraft deal with big owl eyes on the front. And it's all covered in dust. And, it's basically a metaphor for him, just not being a superhero anymore. But she gets in and starts pressing buttons and it all works. And like I say, her whole relationship with Night Owl is like reinvigorating his dead soul. Like he's just fallen into the mundane lifestyle. He's basically like almost depressed. And you can see her kind of, infusing life back into him. So right now, she accidentally presses a button, a flamethrower button, and sets half the Night Owl's cave on fire. Yeah, this is all this stuff is super fascinating to me. This is probably my favorite subplot, the Night Owl Silk Spectre stuff. Because he just basically got into a point in his life where just everything he wasn't anymore, and he's just sort of like semi-retired and just fallen into the trap of not having a life. And then she's fresh off of her relationship with Dr. Manhattan. So like, I don't know, it's a romantic love story, but it's also metaphorical, and it's kind of fascinating. Like Patrick Wilson plays this role really well. Like he's, dorky, and he doesn't look like he could win a fight at all. He looks like a paunchy middle-aged man. But once they go out and have some adventures, and he stands up straighter, and he loses his glasses, and his hair is like, I don't know, it's like the pretty girl in the movie where they take off her glasses and all of a sudden she's like a beautiful woman. Like they do kind of the same thing with him here. Oh, let's see here. Let's check out how much this cost and how much it made. 2009 film. It was 187 million at the box office. Well, let's see what it cost. Budget was 130 to 150 million, and the box office was 187. So that's a disappointment, as much as that is hard to believe. If it costs between 130 and 150, by the way, where did $20 million go? That's kind of a big gap. I don't know, 130, 150, somewhere in there. Yeah. But generally, let's say it's 130. That means they have to make 260 million to break even, because the rule for a budget is you take the budget and you double it, because you'll spend that same exact amount on advertising, billboards and commercial time and all that. So whatever it costs you to make a movie, you then double that same price for advertising. So it's really twice as much as whatever. So if a movie's $80 million, it was actually 160, et cetera. So the rule of thumb is for a movie to be profitable, it needs to make double the budget back. And this obviously came up way short. Um, yeah, 187 million. So it should have made 300. So it's, 120 million short. I imagine they made a lot of that back on home media. I don't know. 120 million in home media is pretty hard. But like I said, they also put out so many damn versions of this movie, the regular, the director's cut, the motion comic, all of it. Malin Ackerman as Laurie Jupiter. She described her character as the psychology and emotion of the film. The actress worked out and trained for her portrayal of the crime fighter and attempts to make the film. Hilary Swank, Natalie Portman, Rachel Weisz, Jennifer Connelly, and Jessica Alba were all considered for the role. I can see every single one of those. Hilary Swank, Natalie Portman, Rachel Weisz, Jennifer Connelly, and Jessica Alba. Yeah, that all sounds about right. Billy Crudup as Dr. Manhattan. Keanu Reeves was also offered the role. Interesting. Matthew Good, Ozymandias. It says Tom Cruise was originally interested in the part and met with Snyder. And you can totally see Tom Cruise in that role. Regarding Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach, the entire audition was shot in the living room, kitchen of Haley's house. The tape was sent to the film and crew, where Snyder watched it, and after viewing the tape, Snyder cast Haley in the role, saying, "Very low tech, but awesome acted. Clearly, there is no other Rorschach." So that's cool. Patrick Wilson, who's on screen right now, the Night Owl 2, actually, to be exact. He was also alternates were Kevin Costner, Christopher Walken, and Richard Gere. John Cusack is admitted a fan of the novel and also was interested in playing the role. So I would think Costner, Walken, Gere, Cusack, those would all be if this was shot earlier, because they're a little old. Maybe Cusack could pull it off, but I don't think Costner could play 50 in 2009. I don't know. Here's where I love this part. The little man, the dude from Seinfeld. What's his name? Wow, I can't think of his name. The guy who was, I think, Billy on Seinfeld is a little person actor, and he's got like these two henchmen. And they see that Rorschach is trapped in his cell as a prison riot breaks out. And they come back and tell him, like, okay, we're going to go get the stuff to cut you out of there. And there's like this suspense building. And then when they eventually get in the cell, Rorschach just beats the living hell out of them. Here's the sex scene between Night Owl and Silk Spectre. And it's kind of fascinating. It's a artistic representation of their sex. They're like on a world about to explode, and they're both naked. And then in the nudity, they peel off their flesh skin, like, their total birthday suit. And underneath their birthday suit is their superhero suit. So it's like kind of saying that the real them is the superhero, and that the humans they are actually just fake characters they play. And then they make out and kiss as the world explodes, and you see all their skin blow off their body as two skeletons are making out. That's kind of amazing imagery, all taken from the graphic novel. I was kind of hoping our friend Patrick, Have Cheetah Will Travel, would pop in tonight. He messaged me on Instagram earlier and said it was long overdue for me to have one of my Night Owl movie talks. So I saw today he had our friend Anthony Chabot on and interviewed him. I need to check that out. It was on this afternoon. He usually comes on at like 7, but it was on this afternoon, so I missed it. But I'm going to watch the replay of that maybe when I'm going to bed. We'll see. I don't know if I want to listen to Anthony Chabot before I go to bed or not. Maybe that's my wake up thing. Maybe that'll be what keeps me company while I'm shaving. But our friend Anthony Chabot is #1 YouTuber in the world. And he's currently working on his memoirs. So yeah, here's where she kind of inspires him to be alive again. She's like, "Let's take Archie out." And they're like, "It's 3 in the morning." It's literally quarter to three here. Yeah, all this is super cool. Where like we see the ship lifting off, and his cape's blowing in the breeze, and he's got like his night owl outfit on. It's very like heroic, super shot. Like I talk about hero shots a lot, like slow push-ins, reveals. Lots of times, anytime anybody looks over their shoulder, like it just builds intensity in the character. Um, I think my favorite hero shot, maybe of all time, is at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back when Luke rides in on the Tauntaun and his face is covered with a scarf, and he takes it down and you can see his face. It's like, oh, our guy. Even though we know Mark Hamill's like the star of the movie, there's just something about that reveal that makes the audience feel connected. Like, oh, this guy's important. So yeah, they go and they put out a house fire using Archie, the flying batwing bird thing here. And then after that, the two of these go back into the ship, and they have sex. And you can see as Hallelujah plays, Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. And then at the part when you see him getting down, and they cut to an outside shot, and there's this huge flamethrower kind of ejaculation scene. It's very, very artistic, sure. But once again, lots of teal and orange. That's always the colors du jour. Once you notice it, when I was learning about coloring video and film and trying to figure out the best ways to like get the most out of stuff I make, one of the things you learn is the human eye really loves teal and orange. As best as I can tell, that's probably what's going on at sunset and sunrise. Like you're most often to see teal and orange in the sky then. As we're during the day, it's like bright, almost hard to look at the blue sky. So you learn that the human eye, for some reason, loves teal and orange. So the fire in movies is often contrasted by some sort of aqua or teal color. Same there. The building was on fire, and the ships, like afterburners, were all in like teal. Almost all movie posters are teal and orange. All the Disney stuff are. It's ridiculous. So there she outruns a fireball, one of my least favorite tropes of movie history. No one is faster than fire. All right. If something explodes, you can't outrun the explosion. But the heroes in the movies can, by God. So then there they drop off all the peoples that they rescued from the burning building. And here's where they start getting down to Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Yeah, I don't know. This movie, in my opinion, it does a fine job of portraying the graphic novel. Like I said, the graphic novel was thought to be unfilmable because it would just take too many hours, and there's too much money involved and everything. So for here, for them to actually pull it off, it felt like something had happened. Sorry, it's kind of hard to talk. Both these characters are getting naked again and having sex. So like I was saying, this scene is one of the most memorable ones to me of it, because it shows the humanity of the superheroes. Like they have loves and lives too, and in addition to the good deeds they're doing, they also have other things that they have to juggle, like old girls' boobies. But the movie itself it plays to an ending with a squid in the graphic novel. There's like this giant alien that shows up, and it's like a plot by Ozymandias to like make humanity think that that aliens were attacking, and then it's supposed to bring them together. But the squid monster is like basically almost impossible to film, especially this giant like kaiju tentacled thing. So I'm trying to remember how they handle it here. In the Watchmen show, the one that's on Max, they do this fascinating thing that's almost the exact same thing. Osmondeus makes fish rain from the sky, like shrimp and crabs and stuff. Um, yeah, there's the ejaculation fire flamethrower scene. That needs to be a commercial for Viagra or Cialis. That's very, very, very symbolic. Yeah, and Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Zack Snyder, you can tell he was a music video director. He uses music almost as well as Tarantino, except he uses very like popular known songs. You know, he's one of those people who will pay outrageous sums for the right soundtrack. Yeah, here's where Little Man and his henchmen are breaking into Rorschach's his cell. And we see Rorschach just getting ready. He's sitting in there, like, tearing up his shirt and making straps and wrapping his hands up for gloves. And Jackie Earle Haley's kind of built for this. I think he's maybe doing some push-ups or something before he got made this movie. Oh, and there, yeah. Here's where he grabs old boy's hands and puts him through the cell and ties him together. And then they have to cut off his hands. His own people cut off his hands so they can get in the cell. This movie does a weird job of waffling between PG-13 superhero story and like rated R violent story. It is rated R. I thought so. 2 hours and 42 minutes is brutal, though. I can't believe they didn't figure that out. I'm a big a fan of the Hitchcock method of length of film. A film should be the length proportionate to the size of the human bladder. So if somebody has to get up and pee, like unless they got prostate issues or whatever, but a normal person with a normal bladder shouldn't have to pee during a movie. So if they go on the way into the theater, and then once they're in the theater, they shouldn't have to go again until they leave, no matter how big their drink is. But these 2 hour and 42 minute movies, geesh. I remember when I went and saw Peter Jackson's King Kong in the theater, and I didn't know it was going to be that long, but I knew the King Kong story. So I kept like seeing that it was like, Kong's running through the streets of New York, and I know what it's going to play to with him climbing the Empire State Building and all that. And that, man, I swear that was like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Even it's been like 20 years and I'm still bitching about the fact I had to pee during that movie. Ooh. So yeah, that's how this one is. It's just slightly too long. And I do see stuff they could probably cut to trim it down. I'm surprised there isn't like a 2 hour version that they play on TNT or whatever. It's probably 3 hours on TNT, I bet, because it's 240. You had 20 minutes of commercials. Speed through the credits at the end. Maybe you get an extra 5 minutes of commercials in doing that too. A lot of these shots are CGI, really cool. Like normally I don't like when they make CGI creatures. Like I don't find the physics of the things moving. Like I don't think the animals move right. I don't think the people run and jump and bounce right and all that. But when they use CGI for scenery or like little people in like basically before they would take a model, and now instead of they just make a CGI version of it and they have little people doing little things. Reminds me of like someone's train set or something. So Rorschach is breaking out of prison, and he's putting on his Rorschach mask. And now Night Owl and Silk Spectre have showed up at the prison riot. And they do the old boy hallway fight thing where they just beat up everybody in a closed, confined corridor. There's a scene like this in the Daredevil show that's really, I think it's maybe the end of season 1, where Daredevil just like beats up everybody as he walks down a hallway, and it's like one of the more memorable stuff from that season. That Daredevil season 1, that was awesome. That was really good comic adaptation. I think out of all the comic adaptations, this is probably, I don't know, 300 is pretty good. History of Violence is really good. V for Vendetta is pretty good. The content of V for Vendetta undercuts it. Like the content of this elevates it. Same with Constantine. I enjoyed Constantine, but that got killed by critics. Nicolas Cage, first Ghost Rider I disliked, and then the second one I kind of liked, but apparently Ghost Rider 1 is the one that more people prefer. I can't believe that. Most of the Batman portrayals on screen have been original stories, but if you're a fan of Batman, you can kind of enjoy it, whether it's Adam West or Michael Keaton or Christian Bale or Val Kilmer, Clooney, whatever. Like they all are their own original take that don't feel like they're being derived from a comic book. It feels like they're being derived from the character, as where this feels like we're basically just watching the comic book play or the graphic novel play out before our eyes. This is really well done. It's the swinging door. This is basically Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Rorschach goes into a room, pushes the swinging door, and it's one of those like the kind they have in a restaurant. So it keeps swinging back and forth, and we get glimpses of what's going on in the room as the door opens and closes and opens and closes. And we see him go in there and beat the hell out of that little dude. It's not very often a movie can convince you to root for little people murder. Even Game of Thrones knew not to do that. Regarding Rebel Moon, as I said, the reason I'm watching this is because I was going to watch Rebel Moon 1 and 2, and I didn't want to subject you guys to 4 hours, and I had no idea how I was going to be able to talk about it for 4 hours. One of the things that's interesting to me is Zack Snyder says he developed it in college, and then he tried to get it made several times, and nobody wanted to touch it because it was too much like Star Wars. And then when Star Wars became a thing, when Disney bought Star Wars and they started bringing in people other than George Lucas to figure out who was going to direct these new movies they were making, apparently Zack Snyder showed up and showed them the plot to the Rebel Moon 1 and 2. And like I said, it was supposed to be one big movie, and people were like, well, it can't be made for less than 4 hours, and nobody wants to make a 4-hour movie. So Netflix convinced Zack Snyder to break it into 2 parts. And then the interesting thing is at the end of part 2, it says, join us for, or whatever. Be sure to look out for the further adventures of these people in Rebel Moon Part 3. So I don't know if they rewrote it, or here we are with Dr. Manhattan's dong again. Basically, Dr. Manhattan has been hiding out. I think he's on Mars. And he brings Silk Spectre there, and she can't breathe. And he makes like a little dome for her to live in and breathe. And it's basically the only person who can make Dr. Manhattan feel alive again as well. Which is kind of a weird, like I say, a lot of the stuff with the women in here is kind of sexist, but kind of like psychologically, it really introspective, I guess. I don't know. They touch on how the original Silk Spectre was a assault victim, and then she sort of fell in love with her assaulter, and this whole thing is like where the daughter is like the woman reinvigorates these men, but like they don't have a lot of ass kicking agency. I mean, they beat everybody's ass, but the men are still doing most of the heavy lifting on the superheroing. Here's a bonding moment between Night Owl and Rorschach. And like I say, I think both of these characters are sort of derived from Batman. So it feels interesting to see, both halves of Batman's personality combining into being a friend. And there's Archie, the owl spaceship. as I recall, this whole thing plays out at to the end at Ozymandias's like secret lair, which is like this fortress of solitude type place in the snow. But we're working our way there. I think we got probably an hour left. 46 minutes left. So yeah, we will wrap up about 3:45 Central Time, 4:45 Eastern Time. So some of y'all are gonna have to go to bed. So here we see Rorschach trying to do his shakedown stuff. He goes to a dive bar and he's like trying to figure out who tried to murder Ozymandias. His logic being that the same person who killed the comedian at the beginning, because this whole thing is supposed to be like him solving the comedian's murder, is that the same person tried to kill Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, as well. But then later on, like I say, we learn that Veidt is behind it all. Now, the more I think about it, man, Tom Cruise really would have been a good Ozymandias. That's good casting. John Cusack would have been a good Night Owl. Rorschach could pretty much be anybody because he's under the mask like 99% of the time. The comedian, I don't know who I'd recast as the comedian. Yeah, that's tough. Maybe Joe Rogan. How's that? Billy Crudup as Dr. Manhattan. When they do the HBO Max series, the one with Regina King as the star, Dr. Manhattan is portrayed by old buddy who's in all the let's just bring him up so I know his exact name. The guy who was a Flavor Month actor, what's his name? Oh, no wonder I couldn't remember. It's Yahya Abdul Mateen II. He's been in everything. He was in the Matrix remake. He was in well, let's find out. He was in the Matrix Resurrections. He was the Candyman when they remade Candyman. The Trial of the Chicago 7. He's in a couple of he was in Us. He plays Manta and Aquaman. So you're probably familiar with him. It's interesting to me when they redid the show, or when the show picked that back up on the movie, that they recast Billy Crudup, who's incredibly white, with this black dude. You know what I mean? It's like, and it still works. It feels like the same exact character, and it's one of the rare like race or gender changes that actually plays naturally. It doesn't feel like they're trying to shoehorn it in somehow. His portrayal, well, I mean, that's a blue dude with a big dong. I mean, who can pretty much can be anybody. I don't know what you need. Yeah, so here we're really digging into the plot where the our two versions of Batman, the vigilante version and the Sherlock Holmes version, are basically trying to figure out this murder. I remember the first time I saw this, it just didn't. I didn't really like it. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love. Felt, because I had seen all these images on in the comic book, it felt like I don't know, a fake version of something. Like it didn't feel like it had its own world. I had the same problem with Kill Bill 1. I actually both Kill Bills. I read the Kill Bill screenplay before I ever watched the movie. So everything that happened on screen, I'd already seen in my mind. And that's the same trap people always fall into when they say the book is better. You know, your brain paints the pictures. So when you see it on screen, it's like, well, that's not how I imagined it. And Kill Bill 1 looked very like television sitcom-y. Like everything just looked in a fake world to me. Like nothing looked like it was actually tangible. It all looks like sets, and everybody looks like they're acting. And that's what I thought about this, is that a lot of it looks like a set. A lot of it looks, I can tell people's performances more than I actually fall into the story. But this became like a cable or, I guess cable. It was on all the time. FX, I think, played the crap out of it maybe, or TNT. And I watched it numerous times then. And being on the property, I've watched the director's cut a couple of different times. But yeah, I actually talked about this movie once before during during a live stream. There's one back around when I first went out on my road trip. When I left back the area I was living in, tried to find a new area to live in. When I was at a hotel, I was like, let's take out the remote control and flip channels. So there's a watch along of me just flipping channels. And at one point, Watchmen comes on. I believe the scene where Night Owl and Spectre are having sex and he gets his erection back, the live action Cialis commercial. Yeah, man, now that I see Ozymandias, Tom Cruise as the character, that's all I can see now. Whenever they cut to him, I'm like, yeah, that would have been a good Tom Cruise. Because he's, you know, at one point, I think Tom Cruise was discussed to be Patrick Bateman, American Psycho. Same with Leonardo DiCaprio was going to be American Psycho for a long time. And I could see Leonardo DiCaprio playing Ozymandias. And there's another thing that they didn't think they could ever do in the graphic novel. The Ozymandias has a pet animal. It's like kind of a leopard, zebra, cat dog thing with like big horns. And it's an extinct animal. He has the only one left on Earth. So until the advent of CGI, I mean, that would have had to have been animated like Roger Rabbit style or something. Or some like a bad puppet. So here's we see the Rorschach's diary or Rorschach's journal is being dropped off at the New Frontier newspaper, or whatever magazine, whatever it is. It's one of the last physical media outlets around. So all the stuff with Rorschach's voiceover is actually being read from his diary. Like we understand where voiceover comes from. And here's where Silk Spectre is back on Mars, and she's talking with Dr. Manhattan and explaining to him how he has to help humanity because they're going to die otherwise. And he points out like the universe won't even notice because he's like all his humanity is gone. He's nothing but logic and science at this point. He's totally Mr. Spock. Once again, a scene that would have been unfilmable prior to mid-thousands, 2009, whatever, is this glass kind of compass floating ship that Dr. Manhattan was flying around Mars. And it's got like all these moving parts and intricate, like it's futuristic technology. It reminds me a lot of like the crystals in the Solitude, the Fortress of Solitude. Like it all looks kind of like that. It's a very complicated and spinning, and it looks like a compass. And there's all this like MC Escher kind of like layers to it. Creating something like that alone would have been $50 million. So you would need CGI to do it. Yeah, Dr. Manhattan says he refuses to see life on life's terms. Yeah, all this is a well shot and acted scene with the two of them, Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre 2 arguing out. It's at the 2:04:55 mark. Once again, we see where he touches her head and she can zap into another. She can like dig into her own memories. You know, his ability to just touch someone's forehead and feel their pain and see their story and everything. Huh. And there's even sort of a weird like it sort of insinuates it in the graphic novel, but it kind of also sort of says it here that when the comedian assaulted the original Silk Spectre, that or almost did until old boy with the noose showed up, that later on they hooked up, and that perhaps Silk Spectre's 2's father is the comedian. Yeah, they're talking about her normal husband is explained to Silk Spectre, like, you went back and actually got with him after he tried to rape you. Like, yeah, all this is just heavy duty emotional drama intertwined with superhero silliness. Yeah, he tells him the comedian was your father. She's like, no, because it's supposed to be like this almost Empire Strikes Back moment, where she realizes the man that she hates is actually her father. Once again, Dr. Manhattan's like a blue or a teal, and he's on an all orange world. So much stuff tries to do blue and orange because it's the most pleasing thing to the eye. Along with pink and teal or pink and aqua. Just certain color combinations, usually opposites on the color spectrum, really work well, like golden or golden purple or violet and yellow, whatever. Like when you see the classic color wheel, the two opposite sides usually go well, but for some reason the human eye just prefers blue and orange, teal and orange. Once you become aware of it, you see it nonstop. It drives you nuts. So Dr. Manhattan is starting to get his humanity back. He says to her, "Will you smile if I admit I was wrong?" So he's slowly but surely attaching himself back to humanity where he was completely attached before. The themes, like I mentioned, this movie is just jam packed with crazy themes, and it just runs through all out it. The government, and then superheroes, and who watches the Watchmen, and our trust in authority, and disappointment in one another, and just all these different things. The world always feeling like it's going to end. Like, I know all sorts of people who think that the world will end during their lifetime. It's a very common like underlying theme, or it's like a sidecar to depression. Like when people are depressed, they often think the world will come to an end while they're alive. And it's like, well, statistically, probably not. Most likely we'll all just live our lives and pass away, and the world will end in 50 years, or 500 years, 5,000 years. Whoa, I'm just breaking everything here. Wow. All right. Earthquake. We're all good. Yeah, she basically makes him love again too. It's like she's a muse, pretty much. Like that's her character. Is she re-inspires these once powerful great men to actually like reconnect to their humanity and be alive again. And then there we do the big pull out of Mars, like once again a shot that wouldn't be able to be made until the mid thousands with all the CGI. We see them as a close up, and the camera pulls way out to like 20,000 feet, and we see they're standing inside a giant smiley face on the side of Mars, like two craters and a happy swoosh. And then here we're coming to the final and the third act. We've got Dr. Manhattan back on board, so he's probably not going to let humanity die. And Rorschach and Night Owl are on their way to Adrian Veidt's hidden fortress in the snow. Yeah, I remember this scene. This was in all the commercials where the night owl ship bangs into, like, it does like a crash landing and barrels through the snow and then like pulls up all close to the screen, and you see the two owls, or the two eyes from the owl, and then a bunch of snow all in front of it and stuff. Um, and then this is all very Batman, where Night Owl has his own like winter clothes that he wears. Like he changes from the brown Night Owl outfit to the like silver, so he's like a snow owl, and he's got a little parka on and shit. And then he tells Rorschach, like, well, don't you want a coat before we start walking? And he's like, I'm fine like this. And he's like freezing his ass off. As All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix plays. See, once again, that's Zack Snyder. He will spend 1/3 of the budget on the soundtrack because he's a music video director. Oh, hey, our buddy Russell is here. How are you folks doing tonight, Russell? Nice to see you. It's always a party when Russell's here. Russell's always been a good friend of the channel. He never misses an episode of In the House. He usually pops in at some point during one of my watch-alongs. You sleep about the same hour as I do, buddy. But thank you. I'm glad to have you here. It's always nice when a friend pops in. So here we see Night Owl and Rorschach discussing Ozymandias about how he's a good guy. And he says, he can't be a bad guy. He's a vegetarian. And Rorschach says, Hitler was a vegetarian. And now suddenly, old boy is back in the brown outfit. So the night owl was wearing like a silver, like I said, a snow owl. Cut to it again. Let me see. Did they actually just straight up change? Yeah. Yeah. So now he's completely out of the white gear and he's in the brown gear. We never saw a costume change. So I don't know if that's considered a blooper, or if that's supposed to be a commentary on the silliness of superheroes and their different outfits, or what. But that was dope. Ozymandias kicked Rorschach in the face, and all his like little ink blot things all went to one side. Like it really added to the effect of him getting smashed. And there, Ozymandias chokeslams Night Owl. Sheesh. Zack Snyder been watching a lot of WWE. There in Rebel Moon, there's a part where one of the guys gives the other guy like a fireman's carry slam kind of thing. And I was like, what the hell? Like that was straight WWE. He says, watching the first Horror Hall of Fame from 1990. I didn't know there was a Hall of Fame. Where are you watching that at, Russell? Is that something on YouTube, or you find that on Tubi? So now Rorschach and Night Owl are trying to beat up Ozymandias, and they realize they can't do it. Even though he's always been a very like chill superhero, they said he was a pacifist. We saw him fight once before, and he was like amazingly fast. But here we see he's more powerful than both of them. So it's going to take probably Dr. Manhattan or a couple more superheroes to come do this. YouTube Plus 2 and 3. I'll have to check out the Horror Hall of Fame. That actually sounds good. I have on VHS. I have the first horror convention I ever went to was a VHS tape. There was like the Fangoria horror or something or other in LA, like the Fangoria weekend, I think. And it's from a VHS tape from like the late 80s. And it's just like an early horror convention before they got more polished like they are now with the good lines and the, photo ops and everything. Before it was just basically an extended version of a Comic-Con. Ozymandias is beating their ass. Yeah, so you could trim down all of these scenes. I see a bunch of stuff that you could cut a minute here, 20 seconds there. There's no reason for this to be 2 hours and 43 minutes. Maybe a tight 220. That'd be better. Especially without the tales from the Black Freighter. There's no real reason to. Hosted by Robert Englund. Actually, the Fangoria Weekend videotape was hosted by Robert Englund, as I recall. Yeah, it's hard now not to just watch the wrap up scene because this is like this powerful. Ozymandias is like this, he's been the ultimate good guy. He basically represents like capitalism or America or whatever, like the fair market or something. But he's really just, like I said, this American psycho type yuppie creep. And you see his like vanity start to unfold here, where he reveals he's Ozymandias, the king of kings. And then here's this weird animal thing. He tells him, "I'm not a comic book villain." And he explains, like, "I'm not telling you what's going to happen so you can go stop it. What's going to happen happened 35 minutes ago." And then we like cut to the cameras and we can see the big explosion that's going to kill millions and millions of people has already happened. Avoiding the James Bond problem, where it's like, why does the bad guy always tell the good guy? The same with the Batman, especially the old Adam West Batman. The bad guys would explain their whole plot and then go off to do it, as opposed to this, where the dude's just like, it's already happened, bro. Nothing you can do. And then we cut to a watch on somebody's hand right before the nuclear war, and you can see the 5 minutes to midnight on the same as the doomsday clock, same as the smiley face with the blood spatter, all of it. Same with Dr. Manhattan's watch right before he got zapped. And there we see the kid that's reading the Tales from the Black Freighter comic, and then the guy who runs the newspaper stand where he reads the comic, and they look exactly like they do in the graphic novel. Same with Rorschach with the red hair and all that. Yeah, there's a total disaster movie porn. There's like a huge nuclear explosion in Times Square and it destroys all of New York, and you see the buildings all crumble, and like there's a lot after 9/11, like people everywhere were traumatized by that. And you just see imagery indicative of 9/11 over and over and over again. That was one of the complaints about the Batman versus Superman, I think it was. One of them Zack Snyder ones where like maybe it was the end of Man of Steel. Yeah, it was the end of Man of Steel when Zod is destroying everything. People were like, it just looks like 9/11, like watching these buildings explode and all these people in the streets running for their lives. And once again, before you can get too heavy or introspective, we cut to a shot of Dr. Manhattan's dong. Nothing like a giant blue penis to break up your train of thought. Like, hey, buddy, cover it up. Yeah, like I say, he's basically just supposed to be like the statue of David. Like he's supposed to be a physical representation of perfection. And that was like the one note they wanted for fixing the statue of David. It's like, make his junk a bit bigger. Yeah, in this, like I say, I was trying to remember how they handled it. In the graphic novel, a giant squid appears in downtown New York, and the people realize that they're not alone. Aliens are there, and that destruction by aliens then unifies the human race, and we don't die in the doomsday clock countdown. Here, they set off a nuclear explosion in the middle of New York, and it unifies all these people. know. I think they probably could have got away with the squid. It's hard to say. Oh, let's see here. Hello, all. Our friend Mr. Dan in Horror is here. Mr. Dan's a cool ass dude. If you're not familiar with Mr. Dan, check him out. He's my kind of people. Hello, all. What a career arc Jackie Earle Haley has had. Yeah, we were discussing that earlier, from Bad News Bears up through Breaking Away, and then this, having his career basically fade away for 15 years or 20 years, and then he does this and gets a reinvigoration, and he becomes the new Freddy Krueger, and just, wild ride for that guy. Arachnophobia was the winner. Oh, the for the horror movie awards. Hey, Dan. And he agrees that Jackie Earle Haley is a mess. First one, Bad News Bears. Yeah, Kelly Leak. Kelly Leak is the prototype for all the troubled 14-year-olds that you've ever seen, riding the dirt bike around with his smokes rolled up in his sleeves and shit. Right, too bad he stopped growing about them, but he's made the most of it. He basically did stop growing about the age he was Kelly Leak. So there they shoot Ozymandias, and he catches the bullet to show that he's like a Superman too. Also, Robert Englund just finished his Knives Gloves. Watching part 2 of the Hall of Fame, 1991. Who watches The Owl Man? Me. Welcome, Matt. We were discussing you earlier. Actually, you came a couple times. Obviously, if we had to watch a movie with a dick with a giant penis in it, they were going to mention dick pills. So you got brought up then. I also brought you up. I hadn't figured out. Have you and Mayanne watched the Chucky stuff yet? I know you were going to have her on to talk about Chucky. I didn't know if that happened yet or not. I thought I was supposed to get notified by stupid YouTube, but they dropped the ball on that a lot. So I've been directing people who are fans of Mayanne to go to your channel and check that out. And if you're fans of mine, you can go to Matt's channel and find a handful of collaborations. In particular, Videodrome with him and Larry was a big hit. So that's also available on my homepage. So feel free to click down on my little logo and go there and discover the work of Matt. He sounds like us with our dirt bike. Oh, you had one of them old school dirt bikes, one of them Yamahas or whatever. I remember that's what, like I say, the cool troublemaker kids had when I was a kid. Folks are welcome in Pugwall. Yeah, Matt rules. Yeah, Mayanne, she taught me a lot. Oh, okay, so you did have that. Okay, so like I said, for those of you who are friends and fans of our buddy Mayanne, make sure to go to Matt's page and check out that collabo. Those are two of my faves together. So here we see President Nixon. He's made himself president for life. And obviously all of this, they're trying to tie into the George Bush stuff, and Nixon actually did want to be president for life. He tried to make it so they got rid of the 2-term deal. So in this, they make it so he just stays president. In the speech he gives to the world where he blames it all on Dr. Manhattan. And then that's where the Watchmen 2, the HBO series, and I believe the comic books, that's where they pick up, is where Dr. Manhattan has been the world no longer believes in Superman. They think he's the villain. So he goes into hiding or whatever. Let's see here. Russell says Mayanne is the sis he never had. Yeah, she's pretty damn awesome. Got some kicking and some smoking in store with my man Dan soon. With my man Don soon. Oh, okay, I see what we're talking about. We are going to be watching at the end of May. Pugwall and I, Matt, will be checking out Reefer Madness together. I put out a video. Well, about 2 years ago, but I republished it this weekend. I reposted it of the top movies to watch for 420. And Matt saw it and was like, we need to watch Reefer Madness together. I was like, I like the way you think, Matt. Matt's always good for a good, goofy movie to watch. Me, I get caught watching these heavy, dramatically themed superhero films with giant blue penises. Yeah, now that every time they cut to Osmondeus, I just see Tom Cruise. That's great casting. And to a certain extent, I can kind of see Cusack as Night Owl. I don't know. I used to have a Watchmen picture disc album. Oh, really? So weird that I had on my list since you've had it on that list since we first met. I wonder what would make you think that I'd be the type of person who'd be into that. Cool. I have a double feature of Reefer Madness and Cocaine Fiends. Ooh, I've never seen Cocaine Fiends either. Matt, what was the other one Matt told me about? The Devil's Lettuce? I've seen the poster for it, but I've never actually watched it. So I might have to watch that sometime and do a watch along. But yeah, keep an eye out at the end of May. I believe it's the 26th. Matt and I are going to be watching Reefer Madness together. So just watched Reefer Madness on YouTube. Boy, have times changed. Yeah. There's a really good documentary called Grass. It's about the history of legalization of marijuana in America and the criminalization and decriminalization, et cetera. And it's narrated by Woody Harrelson, of course. And they really break down Reefer Madness well. They explain how it's basically just a propaganda film and it's supposed to exaggerate. I mean, it's absurd. A dude smokes weed once and then he goes and he manslaughters somebody by driving while he's high. And then he gets framed by the local drug pushers and he has sex with like their loose woman girlfriend. And it just basically shows like how you can smoke weed once and it'll ruin your life. But somehow it makes you play jazz music way better. I don't know. So back to the movie I'm supposed to be watching. They're out in the snow and they're using this heavy blue filter to make it like very cold. And here's where we see Rorschach pull off his mask. And he begs Dr. Manhattan to kill him. And he's just like, just do it. And he's crying. Like it's such an emotional scene because he's been like this badass the whole movie where he's just broken and angry and he talks like Batman. But there, Dr. Manhattan just vaporizes him. One flick of the finger. That's all it takes. Whew. Yeah, I remember reading this graphic novel. It started out it was going to be a bathroom book. I would keep it next to the toilet, and when I had business to do, I'd read a little bit of Watchmen, and then red flagged or not, it had to start going places with me. Whenever I was like knew I was going to be sitting somewhere for 20 or 30 minutes, it's like, oh yeah, bring Watchmen with me. But graphic novel or not, it really did hold my attention the way a good novel does. So I mean, there's a reason it's one of the top 100 novels of all time or whatever. So Dr. Manhattan is giving Silk Spectre a kiss before he disappears. He's been framed for this whole 9/11 thing. And now Night Owl is going to beat the living shit out of Osmondeus. In the Watchmen TV show, the one on Max, the part 2, they say you don't need to watch this movie to enjoy that. I call total BS. I don't know how anybody could watch that show without knowing this first. Jeremy Irons plays Osmondeus, like a 20 years older version. So it's got Regina King, Jeremy Irons. It's got old boy who's in all the damn Coen Brothers movies. I can't think of his name. The guy who was the third wheel in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The guy from Buster Scruggs. Anyone read before Watchmen? I know it's a bit of a modern stealing of IP, but I really enjoyed diving into each character. No, I saw that there was a series of individual ones as well. Like I say, the Max show, but then there was the comics that came out, the Rorschach one and the Night Owl one and stuff. But I didn't. I've never actually sat down and read them. I figured they would probably make an omnibus of them all, and I could check them out then. The Devil's Lettuce and Cocaine Fiends on YouTube. All right, there you go. See, that's Russell always knows the hidden gems on YouTube. Buster Scruggs, love the music in that. Yeah, the Coen brothers are my jam. We're gonna have to have a Coen brother watch along. Although with the Tarantino one, I ran into so many problems with finding stuff on streaming. Like, Jackie Brown was on Max forever, and now it's on Tubi. I can't find True Romance anywhere. Um, uh, Django, I think, is on Max, maybe, or maybe Django's on Tubi. Whatever. But like, just trying to track down each one on each site is such a pain. I'm in desperate need of getting my media collection back. So they're wrapping her up now. The Ozymandias has been defeated. Dr. Manhattan has agreed to accept the blame for the 9/11 thing. So here, Silk Spectre is confronting her mother about the comedian being her father. I don't know, crazy Game of Thrones stuff going on here. Need more sleep. Take it easy, guys. Yeah, you get some rest, Mr. Dan. You the man. Just watched Starleaf about kids looking for E.T.'s pot field. Crazy ass film. Wow. Yeah, that does sound crazy. I'm interested. I did actually watch the Watchmen series, which is quite rare for me to watch every episode these days. The music at Irons were standouts. Yeah. I enjoyed what's his name. He's in it too. The Buster Scruggs guy. And I enjoyed the whole thing where like Don Johnson played like this crazy racist, and there was like Louis Gossett Jr. was Regina King's grandfather, and if you want to know about the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, that's probably the best portrayal on screen of that whole thing. And it really does a good job of tying in like the character of Bass Reeves and a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of wokeism going on, but they also do an amazing job of making it interesting, violent. There's a whole thing where all the police are massacred and stuff. So the police go into hiding and have to wear masks like superheroes so they don't get murdered for being cops. So there's a lot of cool, interesting stuff to touch on in there, but it's, like I said, I don't see how anybody could possibly follow it if they hadn't seen this. And Night Owl ends up with Silk Spectre 2. So it's sweet to see them fall in love, because she couldn't be with Dr. Manhattan. He's timeless and ageless, and he's basically living energy. At least Night Owl's a real guy. Night Owl, Dan. Buster Scruggs is a great Western. Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen Buster Scruggs, that's on Netflix. I think, is that a Netflix original? I don't know. I think that's one that stays on there, but maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already been on Tubi. And then there's the rebuilding of the downtown area. Well, actually, I think that's actually Yankee Stadium, but they're showing where the nuclear war went off, or the bomb went off in Times Square. And once again, a shot we couldn't do without CGI. I mean, that was like a 2,000-foot crane shot where we went from inside Yankee Stadium pulling out into the rebuilding of the downtown area to pull out to go to the New Frontier magazine, whatever I'm trying to remember. It's based on something. The New Republic, maybe? Is that what that magazine was called? I can't remember. But there's the New Frontiersman here, and one of the guys has a smiley face shirt on, and he takes a bite out of a sandwich and jelly drips on it, like that same exact, clock handle time, 5 minutes to midnight or whatever. So they're talking about how, who was it? John Wayne, I think, is going to run, or is it yeah, anyways, they talk about how Nixon is going to get dethroned in 88. Someone's going to run against him. So basically the universe is trying to like adjust itself back like it's supposed to be. All right. Thou Shalt Not Kill, except as a cool film on YouTube. I haven't seen that one. Not a gamer, but really enjoyed the Xbox 360 Watchmen game. Probably the last time I played games. I never actually played that game. I never had an Xbox. I had PlayStation, but I remember when they made it, I was intrigued by it. It's time for us to play my favorite game. Whenever we have one of these watch-alongs, the credits are up now, but HBO pops up, Max, I should say, pops up the You May Also Like. They recommend X-Men Days of Future Past, Natch, X-Men Origins Wolverine, which pretty brutal. Dark Knight, Batman 2022, Deadpool, all feel like definites. Mad Max Fury Road, as I said, the scene with the guy playing the guitar on the flaming, back of the moving vehicle is very similar to Billy Crudup being changed into Dr. Manhattan with that guitar shot. Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins, The Kingsman, The Secret Service, Man of Steel, the TV show Titans, which is all about the young Titans with Robin and all them. The Immortals, Matrix Reloaded, Predators, Matrix Resurrection. Like I said, old boy from Watchmen TV show is in there. Skyfall. Yeah, anytime a villain is trying to destroy the world, I think of James Bond. So. Doomsday. Doomsday was all right. I need to rewatch Doomsday. It was part Mad Max, part Escape from New York. It had a lot going on in it. Superman Returns. I don't know if I ever want to see Superman Returns again. I might watch it sometime on a goof, but it's one of those movies where the most exciting thing about it is how much that guy looks like Christopher Reeve. It's kind of a one-note joke. Like, it's cool to see Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, and it's cool to see that Superman and Lois had a kid. But other than that, you're just basically entranced by how much Brandon Routh looks like Christopher Reeve. Zack Snyder's Justice League, Justice is Gray. The cartoon from 2013, Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. Hitman Agent 47. From Dusk Till Dawn. Why that? Batman Forever, Now You See Me, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2021 definitely feels like a connected movie to this. Man on Fire, Rambo, The Source Code, and The Expendables. I don't really know how. I guess The Expendables are kind of superheroes. I don't know why Rambo from 2008's in here. Maybe because this is a 2009 movie? I don't know. Man on Fire, that also doesn't really make much sense, but what are you going to do? But, however, that is Watchmen. I made it all the way through, even though I had to sit and kind of stretch for some periods. But it's way better to do 2 hours and 42 minutes of stretching than 4 hours and whatever stretching for a Rebel Moon double bill. Cool Gilbert Gottfried is one of the preventers on the Horror Hall of Fame. I'm going to have to check those out. You're really selling me on that. Our fave was the Green Hornet with Bruce Lee. Yeah, I remember you digging that show. Who was the guy who played the Green Hornet? I don't remember. But that basically wraps up our watch along of 2009's The Watchmen by Zack Snyder. We talked about the films of Zack Snyder. We talked about Rebel Moon in particular and how derivative of Star Wars it is. We were able to get to the bottom of basically all of the actors in it and all of their film credits. So pretty much you're an expert on Watchmen now after watching this. So if you want to talk to me about getting some sort of signed certificate that you've passed the Watchmen class, you just holler at me. But other than that, I'm getting ready to shut her down and maybe have a snack and do whatever else as I do in the middle of the night. But I thank you so much for joining me and watching along. Shout out to all the folks who joined us, Erica and Cal and Mayanne and Echo, Matt Pugwall, Gareth, Video Tasties was here. I know my boy Larry is listening. Our friend Russell was here at the end. Pugwell says Rebel Moon is not on my radar. Thanks, Russell, and thanks for hosting, Don. Oh, no problem. Yeah, like I said, I was going to do a double watch along of them, and I couldn't do that to you folks. I like you guys too much. Russell says, great time, Big Don. Thank you, Russell. You the man. You guys are the man, or however you phrase that. Yeah, I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up. It is 3:43 in the morning Central Time. You guys stayed with me all night, and thanks for welcoming me back with another commentary with open arms. I love you all very much. And because of that, I wish you green grass and high tides forever. Be well, my friends.